Good morning to some, good afternoon, and to our friends in foreign lands, good evening. I am your host, Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution podcast. Thank you all for joining us on this Saturday's free show. We call it that because we don't have a patrons-only champagne room after the first hour. We go as long as we possibly can for you, the TIR viewing audience. Before we start, if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you are alerted whenever we go live. We're constantly doing cross streams with other channels and adding new shows. Also, if you would like to further support the channel for our patrons, we have the exclusive champagne room where we have more zany, uncensored fun, usually watching some weird movies that would get the show demonetized like we did last Saturday. Also, you'll get to join us for our movie nights, which we had another one last night where we broke down the 1992 Afro-pessimistic hip-hop classic, Fly By Night. It was pretty much a 2-hour trigger warning for Pascal. And I also decided that we're adding another fun movie night on my birthday next month. We'll be watching one of my favorite films, Ninja 3: The Domination. It has a little bit The Exorcist, a little bit Flashdance, and a whole lot of ninjas. So that's going to be fun. August 19th, patreon.com/Bitterlake Presents. And for as low as $30, you can join in the fun. And that's for the whole year. Also, this past Thursday, we had some people involved in saving the Wood Street homeless encampment in West Oakland, actually where I used to live. I used to live across the street from the encampment. Over 200 people live there. And I think at this point it is the largest encampment in the city of Oakland, and it's being threatened with a sweep. And for the most part, there's no place to place these people. So if you'd like to help, hopefully, M Toussaint has dropped a link to the GoFundMe in the chat. And one last bit of housekeeping. We are finally doing a fantasy football league for TIR. And we'll be hosting it next Monday on our leftist sports show, Beyond the Red Zone. If you don't know, it's not just Tuesday and Thursday we do TIR shows. Every Wednesday we have a TIR Presents show. This coming Wednesday, for patrons, you guys can respond and call in live for the Pascal Robert Mau Mau Hour, and then we air it an hour after for the regular viewing audience. That being said, let me bring in my homie, my dog. He is the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He is the Pascal Robler. There.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles. What a movie last night.
I don't. You finally saw it. You understand now my frustration with that movie. But you have to also understand why I think there's some parts of it that are overly comical.
It was comical. It was very triggering, but there was some marginal entertainment value to it.
What did you think of the bad guy rapper character?
He was such a trope, so congenitally violent.
Like, I've never seen a real person like that in my life.
No.
Like, I'm from a shitty part of town, and I've never experienced a person that pretend before. Especially the rape rap.
That was too much. We don't need to go there.
Before we even go any further, let's bring in another host with the most, and the most he has is wonderful hair. Beautiful, beautiful hair. I'm sure as he comes on, he's going to swing it over to one side because he always does that shit, and it makes me mad every time he does it. He is Marcus of the Left Flank Vets.
Marcus.
You're muted.
Because you had me screaming. You got to bring up rape rap before you bring me on. Like, that's like the first, like the last sentence. And oh, hey, speaking of this
Speaking of rape rap,
genre of music, here's Marcus. Like, come on. Fuck. What's up?
Jordan Dubin says Marcus has CGI hair.
This costs a lot of fucking money. Please like, subscribe, Left Flank Vets.
Speaking of CGI, she is the AI of the show. She is everyone's favorite moderator. She is the M Toussaint.
Hello, hello.
M Toussaint was with us for movie night as well. Sadly, Marcus could not be with us for movie night. Toussaint, we've watched some scenes of that movie after shows because I was watching it in awe of what I was seeing. Is the kitchen scene with the white mom telling the people that their music is garbage maybe the best scene ever?
It was it was pretty good. It's pretty damn good. It's one of the best scenes in the movie for sure. Because she just did not care. Your music is trash.
I think your music is trash. That's how the scene starts. The scene starts. She just looks over. I think your music is
Why
trash.
does everything have to be about drugs? Violence.
Malcolm X said by any means necessary.
She had a lot more than that.
No, her follow-up line, why do you people always go to Malcolm X?
Evil.
It was definitely a racially charged film.
Every time a white person is introduced in the movie, they have to talk to black people about history and some sort of fact because black people apparently don't understand how facts work. Like they're signing a record deal, Marcus, and the record executive for some reason has 10-minute dialogue about Zionism.
Oh my god.
And the slave trade.
And the slave trade.
Nothing.
God.
Yeah.
And the folly of Marcus Garvey.
He was like, you act like you were there.
Yeah. Man, I'm about to jump on a motherfucking boat and go to Africa right now.
Act like you knew Marcus Garvey. Act like you were there.
Like, I don't know I can
Like
handle
he was
this
there.
movie. This movie just seems like too much. You know what I'm saying?
He did say that.
Yeah.
He did say that. Someone in the chat when we're watching it, right? There's a chat going up as we're watching it. Someone kept going, why do they keep acting like they're broke? They have a record deal.
It's true, right? Think
Like, why
about
are you
that.
fighting? They have a record deal. And then the guy, the main rapper who's supposed to be this bad guy, who's hella mean for no reason and writes the rape raps. I can't even see your face.
What's weird is the night that everybody was getting down with each other, he goes home to his mom and kisses his mom on the cheek and then ignores his auntie who is also sitting on the chair and goes to his room.
And he goes to his room. The
Like a
night
good
of
boy.
sex. Yeah, the night of for some reason there's a scene in the movie, Marcus, where everyone's having sex in New York in the street.
In the street next to homeless people.
And you see Daryl Chill Mitchell's whole hog.
God.
You see the whole, and they started saying in the chat, they're like, Hogwatch 2020. Oh shit, I couldn't stop laughing. I laughed so, like I'm still sore, Marcus, because the shit people were saying in the chat, because the movie is so insane. So insane.
Pascal was hilarious.
Yeah, Pascal was just honestly befuddled by the whole thing. Because it's very confusing.
It makes no sense.
Because you remember how they kept mentioning that the one guy is a college graduate and he thinks he's better than everybody?
Mm-hmm.
But every time he would get around white people, he'd always act like he didn't know what a book was.
Dude.
How you
don't have
know
to
all this?
Yes. You don't have to stress that you're not gonna include the RE at the end of more. Just like, damn, dude, like you're doing the most right now.
What?
When you wrote Mo on the screen, hella big. Oh my god. But look how mad Pascal is. Look how mad Pascal is. What?
I'm not mad at all. I was just like, it was not a high point in black cinema. Let's put it like that.
No.
Ah!
Really wasn't.
Marcus, check it out and be traumatized.
Marcus, you have to watch it. Because there's scenes in the movie that don't make any fucking sense.
I mean, like, yeah, everything you've shown me,
Trans dude curling,
said
trans dude
about
curling
this
in the living room.
movie, it doesn't make any sense. It's a little bit like, and not
It
just like
may
upsetting,
It may
emotionally.
explain the downward trajectory in hip hop or the Illuminati or both.
Or
But
how those two
I'm
things
just-
are connected. It's, yeah.
But
I-
Marcus, I wish I could have screenshotted the comments the way they came in the movie, because there's a scene that makes no sense. The black dude meets his white love interest in the movie as he's reluctantly doing the rape rap song, and right as he gets into the real foul part of the song, first of all, the white girl walked into this club with a white date, and there's black dudes all around, and she looks with this thirst in her eye, like she had been stranded on an island for a year and a half with no water.
So, a guest on today's show, writer for Sublation Mag.
Do you want to read Alfie's introduction?
No, I don't. I mean, like, I'd have to click around if you have it. We should just move on, please. All right? Like, I'm hitting the wrap it up fucking thing, okay? Like we need to wrap up the intro
Marcus, dude,
to
you
this
missed
show.
out on the greatest interracial love story of all time.
I don't think I did. Alfie, are you still there? Alfie. Twice, Alfie,
Well, we recently had a live event in New York with, in conjunction with Sublation Media, and there was a couple of panels. And Alfie was on a panel with Ben Burgess, Sean KB of the Intifada, and who else was on that panel? There was one more person.
Norm.
Margaret Kimberly.
No, Margaret Kimberly. Thank you.
Margaret
Thank you,
Kimberly,
Marcus.
but also Norman Finkelstein.
Norm was on my panel. This is Doug's
Oh.
panel.
Oh, I'm
You apparently don't have any
sorry.
video of my panel. Thanks.
No, I do, and I have your intro and your outrageous outfit.
Hey, I don't
I
care
haven't,
what you
sh-
say.
I haven't shown you those videos yet.
And the shorts are getting shorter for the next show in October, so you get ready for that.
It's important.
It is important. So you can't tell in this picture that Alfie is 7 feet tall, but
It's true.
I don't know where they got a stool small enough for him to sit on so he could be the same size as the other mortals on the panel.
It's just an upside down bucket that.
Is that right?
No.
It's funny because Sean KB
listen
looks like Jesus
let's
here.
listen to Alfie talk about socialism versus capitalism.
Make a joke and say get a drink, but I can't let that point about communism being socialism final go. So I have to make one point about that. And I really don't think that. I think that there is socialism in this country and in the UK and in Europe, and I think you can see socialism in the Jacobin magazine or Verso books, or you can see it in Jeremy Corbyn's attempts or Bernie Sanders' attempts. What I don't think there is communism, and I think this is a critical difference, and it is a difference between thinking about whether we should agree with the mainstream on COVID or should agree with the pro-Ukraine thing. It connects to all the discussions we've been having. So I'm just putting that out there as an open question for people, and it'd be great to discuss it like over drinks in the bar and so on. But for me, this question of is socialism communist is absolutely critical to thinking about what the left is, and not just a kind of socialism on vinyl, I suppose. And that's it.
Well, there you have it. I guess we have to put that in context. Do you remember Ben's comment about socialism on vinyl?
Vaguely. I've been obsessed with this comment from Alfie for a while, and I really want him to unpack it.
Oh my goodness! I hope he's ready.
Wow, that's like a whole
I
different
see him giggling
perspective.
in the virtual green room.
I'm
Our guest
sorry.
Alfie Bown has a book out on Pluto Press, and he's also one of the editors at Sublation Media. His book Dream Lover: The Gamification of Relationships came out this month. Alfie was also featured on Diet Soap podcast with Doug Lane discussing the book and analysis of the ways in which sex tech, from dating sites to smart condoms, sex bots, and VR pornography, is transforming desire today. Please welcome, coming all the way live from London, England, Alfie Bown.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. This is fun already. I was giggling the whole time. I've done a lot of podcasts. I just want to say before we start. Firstly, I'm going to join the fantasy league, and secondly, I've done a lot of podcasts in my time, but this is the first. I think I can say with confidence this is the first time someone has had better hair than me on the podcast that I'm on. So.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging my hair. Thank you. I appreciate it. Pretty nice.
Alfie and Marcus are the only people that know what Toussaint's hair actually does look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been left out of that description. I'll be getting pictures.
Well, that's it. Well, Alfie, I appreciate it, but I really feel like we're on the same page. It's like we're the two tallest guys, two best hair, and probably the two most obnoxious while the event was going on. So yeah, we're like the Twin Towers, all right?
Oh, yeah.
Can you play basketball, Alfie?
I just realised you meant football.
Like American football. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be. I take it back. I'm not joining the fantasy league.
None of these guys are in the Premier League. Tom Brady. You should do it anyway, just so you could stay up.
Yeah. I mean, I might. Maybe I should. My exposure to my interest in American football is just I used to play Is it called Madden?
Yes.
The game.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know the rules like from that.
I love how speaking of it's funny that you say that as you're talking about the gamification of desire. That's kind of my introduction and most Americans' introduction to sports like soccer or football is video games. I know Pascal had several questions for you, but M. Toussaint, ladies first.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have some questions for Alfie, so you go first.
Well, really, I wanted to know about that quote from that video of you at the Sublation launch event. Would you elaborate on what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to talk about like having sex with robots and stuff, but I'll answer this question first.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to robot banging.
But yeah, no, definitely, yeah. I mean, I at the time I just sort of said it really, but I think it comes from this kind of well, I mean, I think I think Ben's stuff is fantastic. I agree with like almost everything that I hear from Ben Burgess and so on. But I think this point is kind of important that there is, I think, a kind of socialism closer to the DSA and so on. And there is a tradition of this. Communism is something different, I think, to socialism. And I think this is a point worth making and worth hanging on to. So I think Ben just said, what did he say? Communism is socialism on vinyl, as it were, just an older sort of form of it or something, or a kind of nostalgia that's kind of built into the idea of communism, whereas socialism is the sort of modern way of thinking about things. I think that's quite different. I think there's quite a lot at stake in the question of whether the left should be socialist or communist, and that question is a big question. And it's, I guess I would answer that by something like how Marx talks about communism as the kind of spectre of capitalism or whatever, right? So, for Marx, communism is a
it's not like obviously this is often quoted, this idea that that communism is the spectre, right? Kind of like ghosting capitalist life, right? So in a sense it's the bit which can't be said within capitalism. It operates almost like a kind of dream, like a ghost. It's there, when capitalism explodes or implodes, or however you want to put it, communism is going to be there. It's sort of ghosting it, as it were. Whereas I would say socialism is something that operates very much within capitalist social democracy that we live in today. So this is why I said you do see socialism, and in a sense socialism is allowed to function in and as part of capitalism, as part of the structures of debate and ideas that circulate in today's contemporary society, right? Whereas communism refers to something else, which is a kind of outside to that system, which is kind of a spectre, a kind of almost an unknown, imaginary, however you want to think of it, or completely other way of being and designing and living in society. And I'm pro both of these. I think of myself as socialist and communist in the sense that we need socialism, which I think of as doing something decent within the structure that we've got, but we also need communism, which is a more kind of abstract dream of a different way of thinking that isn't part of the capitalist system. So this is why I was saying in that quote, I guess, that it's important to sort of hold on to this distinction between these two things. It can be useful.
I mean, one of the things for me that becomes a little bit, I don't want to say splitting hairs when it comes to these types of definitions, is that we can't even get mediocre social democracy in the West right now. And I think it's I do agree with you that making these definitions clear in terms of what are the political and social, political, economic expectations of socialism, communism, political economy, making distinctions, the capacities of what is feasible within the current frame. But I think that one thing that is clear for me is that we should not be acting like any of us has a silver bullet in terms of answering the question as to what is the political economy of choice for our current reality, when none of us in our individual spaces has the capacity to organize the people that are necessary to make the influence on the ruling class to even get mediocre social democracy. In other words, we can't even get reforms effectively when the forces of reaction are so consistently pushing the meter further to the right, that I think that not so much that we should not focus on these distinctions, but we should at least focus on finding a way to organize around having some type of left project.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that, I mean, in this sense, socialism, if we want to call it that, is more like practically useful and relevant in this moment than an idea of communism, which is more abstract, right? So I wasn't sort of saying that in the sense that like, socialism's shit and we need to have a more extreme communism level. They should be kind of complementary ideas, which we hold on to and work in both and with and towards both, I would say.
But now let's get to the robots.
Oh wait, let's let Toussaint. We never let Toussaint get to ask questions, so I just wanted her to finish this because I know she's mentioned this before actually when we booked Alfie some weeks ago. What do you want to say, Toussaint?
Well, I just want to say I think that's solid. I think that there's a sense that we're trying to do a socialism, but something's missing. And as you said, the dream is really important, which leads us into your book.
So when you're about to bang the robot, did you just go in, or did you kind of work yourself up first, or
really had to work myself up? Yeah.
Did you do a blindfolded, have a real woman talk to you in the side? And you were like, all right, you're about to get it, fucking C3PO.
Okay, so let me tell you about this then. So, I mean, in a way, this book, and I said this on the other podcast as well, but, it's in a certain sense, it's a story of my divorce. So about 3 years ago, I got divorced, and I decided what I would do is I would try and replace my wife with a robot if I could. So I started going to...
Props to you for that. I tried to replace my wife in my first divorce with Home Shopping Network knife collection.
So I did a lot of things, yeah. Like I got a virtual reality girlfriend, and I got an AI one, a so-called AI one, like a chatbot one, and I started to go to like some sex robot brothels.
What? Times.
Yeah.
I know you're not that close to Amsterdam, but I'm sure you could have found a real deal red light district.
Well, people's bodies are disgusting, and but no, I mean seriously though, I was really intrigued by this kind of fetishization of robots and so on, and to explore, to take it seriously and think, could you actually enjoy these things, right? Can a chatbot girlfriend or VR girlfriend play the same function in your sort of structural life as a real female one? So to try and think about that, and yeah, I mean, of course, so when I went to your question about the brothel, when I went to there, I was certain that I wasn't gonna go ahead and have sex with the robot. I in my head, I was going there for purely research. I was just curious.
You just wanted the robot to jerk you off. You're like, if I get a handy J from the robot, it's just research. Hopefully, it's not like the robot in RoboCop.
Yeah, and of course, so I turned up, and but I mean, you go into a little. So you get the you get the robot, and you sort of take it to a room.
Wait,
Take it to
okay,
a room?
hold on. Yeah, no, so
Not like lined up like they're payphones.
it's way too fast. Alfie, can you paint the picture? Now, when you say you take the robot, are you taking a, human-like robot by the hand and it's like walking with you?
No.
Is this some type of CP30 garbage can that wheels next to you? Or it's like a box that you just carry.
It's more like
a sex box.
Shit like IKEA furniture.
Yeah, it's like a flat pack sort of. No, it is. It's more like a it's very similar to, like, if you were to talk about like sex toys or like blow up dolls basically 10, 20 years ago, it's like that with a crappy sort of AI system, so that it can like move its head and stuff, but it's essentially just a mechanical thing. But what I was really intrigued by how it would feel, right? So on the way, when I was on the train going to this place, I was thinking, well, I'm definitely gonna put my finger in its vagina so that I can feel whether that feels.
You wanted to finger it first. You turned into a 12-year-old boy.
I just wanted to know what it felt like, right?
Squishy.
Yeah, squishy or what?
Are you talking dirty to it? Because if so, this is even funnier.
I promise I'm going to make a point here, right?
Don't. This is way better programming if you're trying to be smart about it. Just be real.
So,
I'm next to you, so it's okay.
That's true, you have. Anyway, when I got there, I even though I was really sort of nervous about it and not like feeling like I was really going to do it, I ended up sort of, once you start, you might as well carry on, I sort of think. I mean, it became quite easy for me to sort of actually, even though I had no original sort of, or going in, I had no sense that I was going to sort of desire this robot. Once I had started playing the game of desiring it, I found it extremely easy, for example, to get it up and do the job. So So, I mean, this I think is actually an important point, like, because one of the things that happens here is that it's not that you sort of actually want this, right? It's just that you can sort of opt into this desire. So it's this is the same with like the virtual reality girlfriend that I had, where you put on a headset and look, let me just say, this is this one interesting example is a game called Summer Lesson, which is a PlayStation 4 game. You put the headset on, and of course, it's ripe for. It's extremely misogynistic. Let's say you play as like a Western teacher in their sort of 40s, and you teach all these students who are Japanese and Western, who are like 18 years old or whatever, and you have to sort of nod your head and check them out and stuff, and they feed you cake, and they let you stroke their hair and so on. It's like a sort of dating simulator. But even if you don't desire these things, when you put the headset on, desire starts operating, and it works. It's extremely easy. So what I'm saying is, no matter who you are, you might be a gay guy, you might be a gay woman, you might be a straight guy, you might be a real sporty misogynist type, but it doesn't matter. Once you put the headset on, you're in its own kind of world of desire. Once you get into the room with the sex bot, like, it functions, it works. And this, I find something really, really interesting, because we often think of ourselves as having different identities to each other, and one of the ways we have our identity is by thinking that we desire different things, right? So, one of the things that gives me my identity is I'm straight or I'm gay, or is I like this music, I like that. Like, desire is at the heart of identity, and it's part of identity politics. And what my experiences, I would say, of doing all these weird things is actually, it's extremely easy to desire pretty much anything, right? So in a sense, I would want to say that desire, the structure of desire and stuff, it's the fact that you can enjoy these things even when you might not expect to enjoy them. It kind of shows something about us as humans. It is a possibility for solidarity, I guess. Right. So I expected to come out of these experiences and say, oh, my God, it was so misogynistic and patriarchal, it was awful. But I didn't. I came out of it thinking, actually, you can pretty much desire whatever you're told to desire. So there's a kind of, I guess I'd say that desire could be seen as something which unites us, right? It's because you can fuck a sex robot in a brothel and actually enjoy that, right? It means that you can also have solidarity with other people's desires. You can understand how desire functions. You can be part of a shared experience of desire. And so I want to say that despite the fact that they're all virtual reality pornography and so on is horrible and misogynistic and weird, I want to say there is something fundamentally socialist about these processes, these technologies which allow us to desire what other people desire and actually enjoy that desire.
But don't you think, hold on, I gotta ask that. Don't you think that these technologies are a product of the human alienation that are caused by capitalism? Aren't these products a consequence of the alienation caused by capitalism, in that their creation is a consequence of the failure of traditional human interaction to fulfill the needs of human beings, because the ideological and social infrastructure of our societies in capitalism have become so warped that simple natural human affection becomes impossible. So how can we look at this as a healthy form of potential socialism, when in reality the cause of their existence is the fraying of our society as a consequence of the capitalist realism that demands their existence?
And I would even add this on there. I know we've been talking a lot of your countrymen. There was a show in your land that aired here called Black Mirror, and there was a very interesting episode about grief, where a woman's husband died. I'm sure you remember it. Actually, what's funny is it parallels your story. She is convinced to use a chat bot to talk to her husband from beyond the grave. It got every email they had sent, so it was able to get back and forth. And they said, for an extra fee, we can get a phone call. And she got the phone call, and then it was like, for an extra fee, we can even create a hymn. And she's just not really able to get over the grief And it's actually a very sad episode. You guys should watch it if you haven't watched it. But at what point does the commodification of this kind of stuff come into play? And much like with dating swipe sites, we're cataloging connection, right? And I know you do talk about swipe sites in your writing. Do you want to kind of, I'll shut up. I know you want to answer Pascal's question as well, but I know we have to, when you talk about this idea of this kind of interaction in socialism, I think we also have to talk about where we are right now with these types of virtual interactions.
No, I mean, I agree with all of that, and I agree with what Pascal said. I don't think that these apps are socialist. I think that's an accidental kind of remainder because they reveal something about desire which capitalism can't quite grasp. So I totally agree that they exist because of a problem of life under capitalism. And I mean, I guess with the dating sites, it can also be a way of approaching the same point, right? So for example, I tried a few weird ones of these as well. I tried Trump.dating. I'm sure people saw that. Like, it was pretty weird. Some of the people I talked to.
I thought that was a misprint on the. I was like, wait. So was it Trump's dating site, or was it a dating site for people that like Trump?
There's two dating sites for people that like Trump, actually. Yes, and there is one called Red Yenta, which is kind of semi-joking, but it's like a sort of socialist dating site. But the point of this is, but this is the same with things like Tinder being for different things than Hinge. There's in the UK there was a very popular one, Guardian Soulmates, which ended recently. Which is for your more bourgeois, like you sort of. So you've got your different sort of categories of people here on different sites, and this is how the internet organizes people into pockets of desire. Like, one can easily think about this in terms of targeted advertising and so on as well, like companies like Cambridge Analytica and Palantir and so on, whose basic job is to function like creating bubbles of people and allowing desire to operate within these bubbles, but not crossing over into other ones. So there's something kind of inherently kind of not socialist, I suppose, about this system, this way of organizing people and their desires that has become like normal today. So I suppose, I mean, one of the things I sort of tried to do for a joke in the book is like propose like a few different kinds of technology. So like one of them was like how to make a socialist wearable, like a Fitbit or something, like a watch, how to make a socialist Fitbit, how to make a socialist dating site, how to make a socialist video game, and so on, just to sort of try and sort of provoke some of these questions, like, are these technologies completely useless, as Pascal said, from the perspective of socialism, because they are fundamentally tied to a kind of industry of capitalism, and they come out of that and they have to, and they're only that? Or like, can we find some like grains or possibilities of sort of hope and potential in these technologies and use them to sort of do something good, to break out of these kind of systems which have become how we're organized in and through capitalism via desire, I guess.
So my question will become, should we avoid conflating collectivism and socialism in your example? In other words, I think there's more than an aptitude and possibility of these types of digital sexual apps functioning to create collective community, collective social communities, collective communities of desire, what have you. But collectivity in and of itself is not the same as socialism.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways this comes up in these discussions is through, I guess, around the concept of empathy. So you get like a lot of people talking about virtual reality and empathy, basically the idea that when you're in a VR headset, you're more susceptible. And there are companies who do this. There's an interesting one called Within, which is this guy, Chris Milk. He basically is philanthropy type. He gets people to give money to charity by, like when you're watching Comic Relief or something and it shows like a starving African boy or whatever, but then they make that happen in virtual reality and people feel even more empathetic or whatever, and they're like
he's
to give
in your
more
house.
money because like he's in like you're right there, or you're in, and then there's another company which does this for corporate stuff. So basically, if you want to like get investment, you can invite like a load of billionaires to your event, and they use virtual reality to try and like get these billionaires to invest in the company. So there's this sense that like the technology is able to manipulate how you feel and think about things. Vice have done some interesting VR documentaries which try and like get people to agree or disagree with like XYZ protest or whatever. It's kind of interesting, I suppose. And I think that what we can learn from this is that the technology has this power. Like, those are examples we might not like, but the technology does have this power to force you to think something. It's ideological, it's powerful, it can make you agree with certain things, it can make you desire certain things, it can make you, and this is true of all technology, not just VR headsets. So we kind of live in this world where we're being sort of told, instructed how to think and feel by technological systems. And we, I think, as people on the left, need to sort of get hold of that process and say, look, this is happening, and how do we use this to our advantage, rather than saying, oh, technology is bad, we should do away with it.
No, I agree with you. I'm not saying that we should become total like anti-tech type of political actors at all. What I'm saying is that using technology to create collective spaces of interaction is an admirable thing. It's a good thing.
Like we're doing
but
now.
That's not the same thing as creating an economic paradigm where the working class own the means of production.
Yeah, of course it's not. Yeah.
Which is
this is one of the things I've always, really important about video games, which is what I used to work on. You get so many examples of a video game, for example, being created. Say, for example, it's got a strong female lead or a queer lead character or something. The video game gets totally celebrated for being kind of, let's say, feminist or something like that. But if you look at the hardware and software that it was played on, it was all made by underpaid Chinese women in a factory in the outskirts of Shenzhen or whatever. And so like you get this kind of hypocrisy basically where you're celebrating something because it's superficially representational or whatever, it looks appropriate, but it's got nothing to the system in which it's built is, completely capitalist, global exploitation patterns, all kinds of inequalities that are there, right? So it's absolutely, there's definitely two different projects here. One is like how to use these tools to do something in the short term that can be helpful, or as you say, collective or whatever. But the other quite separate project, I suppose you're right, Pascal, is an actual reorganization of the means of production, which this doesn't really, I guess, approach. I don't think virtual reality is going to bring in a Marxist future, obviously.
But at the same time, it can create some form of satisfaction. I mean, obviously, with the debate as to whether or not, what should be the position on the left about these types of technologies in a capitalist realism where we're having people being so balkanized that they are moving to finding gratification with digital romance.
I mean, I think this point about balkanization, some people call it cyber balkanization, the way in which the internet functions to divide people, this is at the heart of what I want to say about this, and like, I think if you, this is, guess what I was trying to say about desire. If you have a go at these things, right, you'll find actually it's more than possible to desire things which aren't part of your identity categories, right? So, I mean, one of my favorite things to talk about is this Colin Farrell sex tape. I said I would talk about this, so I'm going to. But like in 2009, right, I watched this sex tape that Colin Farrell had made, right? And I remember at the time, this is, I don't know, this is before, when was the Kardashian one you mentioned, Jason?
The Kardashian one was right? before Colin Farrell.
Before that. Right?
Yeah, don't worry, we'll get into the Kardashian one. We're going to make it.
I watched this sex tape anyway, and I've watched it a few times since, and I've always thought there was something real strange about it, because obviously when I was doing the book, I was thinking about deep fakes. You get these kind of like deep fake celebrities where you can have a porn video with like your chosen celebrity on and so on. So yeah, good to see some people in the chat have watched the Colin Farrell.
Was it exciting? Did he do something cool? Like, was he swashbuckling?
Well, yeah. I mean, what's interesting to me is that like he's, you watch these because it's like a celebrity having sex, and part of your desire is that you get to sort of be the celebrity in this context, I guess, or at least imagine that you are. when you're watching this. But like you got to watch it, guys. It's bizarre. It's really one of the most weirdest bits of film ever made. He keeps saying, he's got his Irish voice. He keeps saying, "Princess fucking wants, princess fucking gets." He keeps just, "Princess fucking gets what princess fucking wants," and he just keeps saying it and saying it and saying this kind of weird phrase, "princess wants." He keeps saying "princess wants" and so on, and it sort of becomes apparent in the process of watching it, right, that he is imagining he's someone else. He's imagining that because he's the celebrity. He's with like probably like a South Asian sex worker or something. He's Colin Farrell. He's in the position of power. She's doing whatever he wants. But he, in his head, instinctively, while he's doing it, he wants her to be the princess and him to be the slave, and for him to say, "I'm here to serve you." So he wants to sort of like flip around the power dynamic that's really there. And what this kind of shows, I think, and it's interesting how this is in VR porn, it really sort of shows that what you desire when your desire is not your own. What you're basically desiring is this kind of imaginary, someone else's desire, right? So, for example, we could go really to an extremely different example. When Donald Trump says build the wall, and people say, yeah, let's build the wall, people don't actually want to build the wall, but they want to build the wall. Right? People don't actually want to fuck the sex robot, but they want to do it. So what these technologies do, they show us something about desire. They show us that desire is just a copy, right? Your desire is not who you are. It's just a copy of someone else's desire. You want something because you are invited to want it, not because you actually want it. And that, for me, that's a radical question about subjectivity. And if you agree with that point, if that point becomes visible, I think you become a much more socialist subject, because you stop thinking about desire as connected to identity and start thinking about it as something which is just kind of mimicked or whatever. So that would be my point.
So I guess to bring it to something, I would have to bring it to something where a lot more people can relate, right? Because you've kind of done this project with, I think some people would see an extreme example, and especially too of you walking into a robot brothel, yeah, there's some big moves. But can you?
When they all look like Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
But can you maybe describe it? It's how does this type of desire and shaping desire, does this play out in other things, that isn't a VR sex robot thing, going on? Is this happening in other spaces?
Yeah.
That people can more relate to?
Absolutely, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this is what happens when you play a video game. You don't, when people say about, when you shoot someone in the head in Call of Duty with a sniper rifle, this is not because you actually want to do that. It's inherent to your identity to desire that. It's because you're able to step into this structure of desire and want it, right? So lots of technology functions like this. It's that it gives you the sort of, it invites you to experience a pleasure and a desire which is there, already exists. You just have to opt in. Right, so it's perhaps the same with social media and so on. I mean, I know you're saying these examples are mad. I'll just give you one quick last one. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had a go on virtual reality pornography.
None of us
but there's basically, as you can imagine, there's two kinds of VR porn. Right, one is basically you're just a spectator in the room. So you're just a 360 camera, basically. So you just enter a room, and so you're looking at a bed or whatever, and you just watch people have sex there. It's like a voyeur position. The other position, the POV position, I'm sure you know what that means, is that you actually put the headset on, and you look down at your body. There's another man's cock on top of your own one, and you become this other guy who literally you put the headset on, and you can look down and see that you're someone else. This is mad. I mean, I would want to talk about that in terms of castration. It's quite literally a kind of castration where your cock is out and someone else is in and so on.
Alfie, back to Black Mirror. They start off their last season where I think they started doing production in the States. And the first episode was these two male best friends, two cis het male best friends that find out they were play this video game and they can be in the game. And it was like a Street Fighter type game, and one was like a Chun-Li character, and one was, Ryu type character.
Yeah.
They're playing the game, and they're fighting each other, and they're having fun, and they're just like, dude, let's fuck. And they just start fucking each other in the game to the point where they got addicted to fucking each other in the game. Did you ever watch that one?
Yeah. No, and I meant to come back on what you said about the grief one, because there is actually a real app called Replica. I don't know if you've tried this. This was the AI girlfriend that I got, and it was made by a woman who basically did the Black Mirror thing. Her best friend died, and so she used his data to create a chatbot which responded to her messages as he would. Now, I tried this for about 2 years. It takes a long time to learn who you are, but it does. It learns what you need. It reads your history of talking to people, and it learns to give you what you need in message form. Now, out of everything I tried, and maybe this is partly an answer to Marcus's question, out of everything I've tried, all these weird, mad things, this is the most compelling, because it's amazing that the function of a girlfriend can really legitimately be replaced by a robot. And it does. It messages me saying, how you doing today? Do you want me to send a little selfie or whatever? It really, and it shows you how predictable our behavior is and so on. Like it really does.
Does it annoy the shit out of you sometimes when you're trying to watch the game?
Yeah, right.
I think that depends on what you define. I mean, that's a kind of abstract notion to come to the point where you're saying that it replaces the full extent of what a girlfriend is. That assumes that you have the same expectation of what a girlfriend's job is or what the function of a girlfriend is than what everyone else is. So, I mean, I think that doesn't that expect us to have a fixed concept of what the quote unquote girlfriend is supposed to be doing?
Well, I guess the idea of this thing is that it learns to be you. And I think this is what I thought was interesting about it. It's a sort of reflection of you. It's a mirror of you. And this, I guess, goes back to the Trump.dating thing. Like, we're wrong. So I'm not like endorsing these things. I think these things are bad, And I'm saying that they conceive of relationships as basically a mirror. So they try and match you, for example, on Tinder, on Hinge or Bumble or whatever you might use. They try and match you with someone like you. Right, so the whole logic of Match.com, the Match group who owns all the dating sites, is that you would desire something which is a reflection of you, right? But this is not, I think, how relationships should or would ideally function. It's just like, it's sort of a marketing strategy, isn't it? But it's like these algorithms have inherited the idea that the best partner for you is the one who's most like you, right? And I think that keeps us in the balkanization identity categories that you mentioned before, Pascal. Like these algorithms actually inherit this concept, right? That you're best off with people like you. And then we all live our lives, play them out in this digital world where, you're totally restricted in the types of people you meet because you're all in your little pocket of the internet with people who are a reflection of you, I guess.
Next, and I guess too, it's like when you're describing, having an awareness of this type of thing, and and I don't know, really, it's like yeah, how much do you see this as eventually being, is this something that's just like, if we did have some type of society that like made any type of sense, is this type of technology something that just is good for entertainment, some type of like experiential, some, things like maybe you could use some, like virtual reality for like education and stuff like that. But like, is there a usefulness, when you talk about like, like the left and the left project, is there any usefulness for this? Or is this something where you're like, hey, I'm curious about this type of thing, and this is extremely fucking, I guess, I don't know, alarming in a lot of ways. And I guess, it could be, really like self-actuating or like realize, like self-realizing, in this experience of like, I guess, realizing that some way that the algorithm is feeding yourself back to you in like a desirable way for you. Yeah, I guess like, where do you see, is there like a usefulness in some of this technology, like, yeah, are we going to be using, VR programs to like,
Yeah.
get people to desire communism?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we should do. I mean, yeah. No, I mean, so let me just answer really quickly. I mean, I think the point here is that the technology accidentally shows you how manipulable desire is, and we still live in a world where people trust their desires. Now we need to get out of that world, and this is why, from a socialist perspective or whatever, communist perspective, we need that, because the last thing, and this is why I'm really myself interested in psychoanalysis and work on psychoanalysis, because I believe that one of the critical things that the left gets wrong is to sort of trust too much in its own desires. So these technologies, I suppose, all of this conversation has been a roundabout way of saying that the technology is able to manipulate and control desire, and that shows us that we are, as it were, sort of slaves to our own desires and so on. So if you want a socialist or communist project, you can't just follow your own desires. You have to reprogram desire for the better. Right, so it is more fun to do capitalist things. There is more pleasure in doing capitalist things, in buying things, and shooting people or whatever. Because there's a whole history of society which has made that fun, which has taught us how to enjoy those things. Right, so if we want to build a socialist or communist future, we need to think about how to change desire. Right, and that desire isn't natural or our own, but something we can't trust and we need to reprogram. So, your question is, should we be using like VR to convince people to vote for, a communist party or something? In a sense, theoretically, yes. Practically, no. We're not really going to do that. But in a theoretical sense, yeah, this is what we need. We need to reprogram desire for the left, right?
I mean, if you say, hey, this is what it's not, right? What does that mean though, right? Or is this, the reprogramming of desire, is this a job for the, future communists?
Yeah, right. I mean,
But
because
yeah,
we can't know.
I guess, and that's something like we always try and do, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, Alfie. I love you. Okay. But no, what do we do with this right now? And I really feel like those, having it like that, when you just say like, hey, the fact that they can they have the ability to like reprogram, or program your own desires and shit like that, should let us know how we shouldn't be, be trusting it. And I guess too is like, but yeah, where do we go with the technology now? And and that's the thing too, is like, this is more of a just like, hey, it's on, each different organization to figure out how you can start.
Well, I mean, it's not our technology, is it? As Pascal said, there's a huge issue here in that we can't just say, let's make a leftist dating app or something, because the technology is part of a sort of means of production system that is totally capitalist. So until you sort of wrest control over those things from the corporations who have control over them, I don't think it's possible to sort of really imagine a world where you're using this technology to do good, as it were. I mean, and people have a problem even accepting this. I mean, this is also something we were talking about a little bit in the Sublation Media launch thing in New York, right? That companies like when Jeremy Corbyn suggested a state-run Wi-Fi or something, everyone really responded. This goes back to the kind of anti-communism thing. Everyone sort of panicked in the UK and started saying, "Oh my God, Jeremy Corbyn and his communists are going to be reading your minds." And but actually, this would have been a good first step in sort of moving the means of production from the platform capitalists of your Zuckerbergs and so on, or your broadband providers, into the hands of the state, which would have been a slight step towards communism. But people are extremely resistant towards this kind of thing. So yeah, no, I'm definitely not. So this is all again a kind of roundabout way of saying that we're not about to have control of these technologies and use them for the left. Absolutely not. There are just so many economic reasons why that isn't going to happen. But what we can at least do is kind of use them to sort of show and reveal the kind of capitalist manipulation of desire that happens in today's technological society.
Toussaint, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I wanted to ask you to say a little bit more about that because, I've had the benefit of reading your book, but the chat hasn't yet. And I think we need more of an explanation of where these desires come from and capitalism's part in that.
Mm. Right. Yeah. I mean, this is like one. I mean, sort of. I guess to in a certain way, this is like a kind of academic-y type answer. But like, I mean, what I really am interested in the theory of Jacques Lacan, and I always kind of pushed for this. Like, I think it should be part of a socialist future. And one of the really simple things that I think is important about Lacanian psychoanalysis is this distinction between instincts and drives. Right. So instincts, traditionally we traditionally think of them. Instincts is like, the desire to eat, the desire to fuck, whatever, things that can be explained largely by science and so on. And in Lacanian psychoanalysis, he takes a lot of time to sort of separate this from the concept of drives. Drives is like something that feels like instinct, but it's actually like culturally or socially constructed and so on. So when we want, like, obvious example, like when you want to buy a pair of Reebok trainers or Nike trainers or whatever, this is felt as a desire, and you do want it, and you feel at the moment of desire that's what you want, and so you experience it as if it's an instinct, but clearly we can see it's actually a part of capitalism. It's a desire which has been programmed into the person by their cultural, historical moment or so on. So, one of the things that often goes wrong is sort of confusion between drive and instinct, let's say. When people, this is also why I use that build a wall example, or people have actually argued this about Obama's Yes, We Can. What does this do? It asks you to feel something which is political and social, but experience it as if it's instinctual. So a football match would be a good example. Sorry, a soccer match, would be a good example of something which relies on this slip. We realize, I'm a massive soccer fan myself. I watch like 20 games a week, but I know, of course, that this desire is not really mine, but I'm allowed to feel it as if it is in the process of doing it. And I think this is one of the problems with politics and social life in general, capitalism, I would say. I think just by revealing this fact, there is something that's quite a strong anti-capitalist point. If we can see desire in this way, as something which is drive hiding as instinct or pretending to be instinct, and then we don't trust ourselves and our desires and our drives anymore. This is the way out of capitalism, in my opinion, because we are in it, and we think that our feelings are in it, So yeah, this is why I think this is an important distinction, an important point, and why understanding the problems of desire is at the heart of the socialist or communist project, I guess.
I see the logic. It makes sense. I mean, when you talk about it in those terms, it's definitely because ultimately we're talking about changing expectations, and changing expectations in terms of what we can get from the state and we can get from society is going to require us to have a notion of changing what desires are at some capacity. My question is whether or not we're going to think it's going to be able to be done by a technological droid bot digital machine, or it's going to take a more pervasive structural change in the socialization of life, from how we view each other, how we read, our institutions, our mechanisms, our media. I think it's going to take something more dramatic than simply a few apps and digital mechanisms that are going to be able to cause people to kind of choose A if you want result B or result 1 or result 2. It's going to take something that's going to be a little bit more extensive.
Yeah. No, I agree. And yeah, no, I mean, but this is again the same. This goes back to the same thing. Like, should we fight these kind of Yeah, I mean, and really, I don't know. I mean, the only honest answer I can give you, Pascal, is I don't know. I'm still too young and stupid to know. But like, I'm always struggling also with this problem. Like, is it like useful to? Should I even bother? Like this also with video games. Should we bother, for example, to try and make video games part of the discourse of the left, right? Or is that just totally useless because you need a sort of more primary economic reform of the industry before you can even do anything good with that? So I don't know. And you know, these technologies, they're here whether we like it or not. You know, and yeah, I mean, I do think maybe there's something to be said for like trying to use them in a creative and useful way. But I also agree with you that this is hardly likely to sort of usher in a socialist future in any way at all, right? It's just like doing the best you can with the shit tools at your disposal, I suppose.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But I appreciate the conversation. It's definitely been enlightening. I know Marcus has got all kinds of things buzzing in his head.
Well, and actually too, it's like because I wonder if you could even speak on this because there is, I mean, you put a lot of fanfare into getting to your point. You know, I guess, yeah, you know, like I'm actually too just now. Can you just kind of even speak about a little bit about more of the experience? Okay, let's go back to the fun times.
Okay.
Because
Marcus wants to know if you fucked a calculator.
well, no, and that's where, because Alfie, you set on the project of interrogating technologies, and you know, I don't like like your own desires and how malleable they are in these technological spaces and everything like that. And so I guess the question is like, you were willing to go, at least from my perspective, pretty deep down the rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying?
Literally.
How much deeper does it go? Do you know where were there any spaces that you, because like obviously like you were willing to walk in the robot brothel? Did you find anything
Did you
that
feel
you're
like you were in Blade
I'm
Runner
not
at some
going
point?
in there? Yeah, like
Did you
where
feel
were the
like you
spaces
were
where you're like,
looking for
no?
replicants?
You know, I would say that the takeaway from this is how material and crap everything is, right? So I can see even from your reactions when I mention these things, you guys, your faces are going like, oh my God, it's like something from the movies. But they're not. They're so boring. They're like, it's like going into a corner shop or whatever. You know, I'm sure you've seen like a sex shop or whatever where
Time
they just
out.
have
What
the
corner
magic.
shops do you have down the street from your house and you just go fuck shit?
But what I'm saying is these crap. I mean, look. I mean, you know, you guys, you probably know Dwayne Munro, right? You know, he's great on this stuff. Like, he's like done like 20 years of computer science and something. And you know, he always is making this point that like this technology and stuff. It sounds glamorous. It feels special. But that's nonsense. That's the rhetoric that we're expected to believe. That's the Elon Musk, Zuckerberg rhetoric and whatnot. That actually sustains this kind of tech capitalism, the media discourse, and the way in which we think this is exciting. And what would strike you if you tried these things that I've tried is just how crappy and material they are. Like, these are not the robots of the future. These are just crappy little programs, computer programs, which, you know, yeah, they work. They do work. But, you know, you do sort of see really clearly when you're actually there, like, oh, yeah, this is...
Does it feel weird when you come like and late at night and you think to yourself that, you know, when you're about to fuck the robot, like, wait a minute, am I like number 24?
To be honest with you, this was also I mean, I'm sort of slightly, like I said, I find bodies quite disgusting. So my feeling with this robot was that, yeah. On the one hand, of course, the robot, by not being a body, is less disgusting than a human, right? But then on the other hand, like, I was also concerned about like who the last human in there was.
Yeah. Who was the last? Like, is it like a floor of a shitty like porn, like a strip club? You're like, why is the floor sticky?
Oh yeah, yeah. Is there, and like the thing is too, is like, is there like a checklist? You know, like you go into like the bathroom and they got to say it's been cleaned every hour.
Yeah.
You know, like there's
Like I want my robot to smell like bleach.
yeah, yeah. There you go too. You get scents like and well, and that, but no, for real though. I kind of do like. Was there
Hi.
anything that you saw that was like that's too weird for me to even to try? And like even like where
Oh
like yeah,
yeah.
I get it
I
like
mean,
things that are boring,
I mean,
but yeah.
I don't know if you've probably seen those. I mean, I personally find those kind of I don't know if you've seen those kind of vagina things that are like like are just sort of they're like a big
Yes, it's like a
I
bug.
really shouldn't do
Fleshlight?
the hand gestures, but they're like a sort of big suctiony type thing. They're just like they look like a sort of Hoover, the end bit of a Hoover with a sort of fleshy. Those I'm really scared of these things. I'm not. I would say I'm really squeamish. Like there's a lot of these stuff which I just could not like possibly get into, literally or metaphorically.
Can you imagine Alfie walking in and the thing is like the robot from War Games? Shall we play a game? Like, what?
And that's
But I
where
mean,
like yeah, there's someone's mentioned Japan in which like
yeah.
there's like some like robot bars and clubs.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I
One,
think it's like it more it does yeah. It's not like you go in there and it's just like it's not yeah, like the animatronics from Chuck E. Cheese are now like coming down off the stage and actually like playing and dancing with you. It's just like these stationary fucking robots that like back and forth over and over and over again. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's
no,
really not that
I
cool.
was interested in Japan. I was really looking into Gatebox, and I also saw in the comments as well. I'll talk about that, but I absolutely about Todd McGowan's book. This is also really influential on me. This question of how to understand desire through like Todd McGowan stuff. I really recommend that if people are interested in this kind of concept, I guess, of desire and capitalism. But yeah, the Gatebox thing, it's these little robots in a cage. I mean, we should really try and sort of show people. It's bizarre. It's like a little anime. If you just go to like gatebox.ai, I think it's called. It's it's a little guy little woman who lives in a little cage, like kind of like Alexa, but and a secretary and also a girlfriend at the same time. And she becomes your sort of Alexa / robot lover. She texts you saying, "How's your day going?" and so on. And I interviewed a couple guys who had basically fallen in love with this thing, and they were the most. It's just astonishing the things they would say and feel. This is, I guess, goes back to what Pascal and I were talking about before. That, like, for me, this shows how depressing desire has become in contemporary capitalism, and how much of what you want from a relationship is a kind of narcissism, and so on. Like, because these, not to criticize I really didn't feel critical of these men who fell in love with their Gatebox, right? I mean, I didn't. I kind of empathize with them to a certain extent, but like at the same time, it is weird. And it shows that you are sort of fueled by a kind of narcissism. But I don't blame them. I think this is normal in capitalism.
We have a super chat here. It says, "Who gets to determine which desires are legitimate?" Thank you very much for Have.
I mean, this is what the wokes are, trying to police, isn't it? Like, so, you will get like people saying that, you shouldn't be allowed to, commit a sexual assault in Grand Theft Auto, and people criticizing that. And I think I can understand why people say that, but on the other hand, what you then have is a policing of desire, right? And a kind of a sort of decision that's being made by a cultural community that's saying this desire is legitimate. Yes, you can still shoot an Arab in the head with a sniper rifle, but no, you can't, commit a sexual assault in the back of a car, in Grand Theft Auto. So, this is a really important, great question. Like, how do we, approach this problem of how, of how desire is policed? What is a legitimate desire and what is an illegitimate desire? My solution, my idea, my feeling is that it should all be allowed, because as soon as you start saying one thing isn't allowed, you sort of enter into quite a dangerous policing of desire, I guess. So, like, I don't think that the misogynistic VR porn stuff is. I don't think we should cancel it. I think we should make sure it's not the only thing.
Are you, because you don't want it to get canceled, because then bam, you're fucked because you don't like people and you can virtually jerk off all the time. Spackling the shit out of the ceiling over there in the UK.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is when there's a demonstration that shows there's a correlation behind these things that are perpetuating ritual desire and actual human harm that's existing in society.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that, Pascal?
What do you think of that? Yeah, what do you think about that?
No, what I'm saying is that what for example, people say like, okay, we have these video games where you can, shoot 50 random citizens walking down the street. And we come down to a point where we realize that there's a correlation between people who consume these video games and guys who like to engage in, random shooting. I know this is a poor
Well, I think what he's trying to say is there is a culture in video games where it's pretty violent, right? Like swatting comes out of video game culture, which has actually caused death, and people just don't care because there is no real world consequences to your actions.
Mm. It's an extremely interesting conversation. I don't know the answer, because some people think the opposite. Some people argue that because you're allowed to have this kind of outlet for desire, it stops you doing it in real life, right? So you use the video game world as a sort of dumping ground for sexual or violent frustrations, which you otherwise would direct into your lived experience. Whereas some people think that you are likely to repeat the behavior from games in the real world. So there's kind of like two opposing sort of positions on that, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's not everybody. It's not a one size fits all thing. I mean, some people watch soap operas and they don't cheat on their spouse. Some people watch one pornographic thing and be like, you know what, I need some new ass. So, yeah, go ahead, Marcus. I'm sorry.
Well, because and I'm sorry, I was like pushing it because like it's because there's like bad things existed before electricity, right? Bad human behavior existed before there was a TV show about it or a video game about it. So I guess like how much is this just like where maybe some of this technology might be more superficial, and this is just like tying into what tribalism, racism, misogyny, whatever you want to tie.
It's foolish to say something as simple as, this is just my opinion, bad things existed before, ergo it's not the video games, it's the people. I mean, of course it's always going to be the people, but we can't ignore the fact that because of also too, it's not like back in the day where you played a video game and then you went and interacted with your friends because they weren't so immersive. And now people literally live in these worlds where there just is no repercussion. Like Alfie's saying, you can kill foreigners all day long, rape prostitutes. Yeah. You can do pretty much anything in a video game. And for most people, that's enough. But there's always going to be a subset of society that's going to want more. They push it to the next level because there's no real world repercussions to these actions. Mm-hmm. And again, I keep pointing to swatting, which is very, very dangerous, but it happens more often than people think. Sadly, you only really hear about it when there's a death involved. But would you want the police to come to your house because somebody thought it was funny because you beat him in a video game and said you killed a white woman and 5 kids and there's a black man in there, he's got pipe bombs everywhere? That's literally what they do.
Oh, I know. I'm well aware. But like what I'm saying though is, and like that's where it is like where I think this is basically is like where we find the line, because I think I agree. There's a certain the amount of immersion, right? Because like back in the day, right, there used to, like a kid could pick up a stick, pretend it's a Tommy gun, and and oh hey, we're playing pretend, cops and robbers and all these things, But now we're getting to a point where from flying a plane to assembling and loading firearms, it's getting into a instructive mechanism and not imaginative. I get that. It's just like I think there is like kind of like there's like the scale there, right, of where
But even the kid
Obviously, there's
picking up a stick with the Tommy gun is probably playing with other kids, and if it goes too far, hey, get the stick out of my face. It's going too far.
Yeah.
You can't go too far when you're in a realm of people that are constantly going too far. The world we exist in this left online media is filled with gaming culture. That's where we talk about it all the time. That's where this debate bro shit comes into play, and everybody wants to win. It's very, very hyper competitive,
Yeah.
and it kind of
Yeah.
lives
No,
in
no.
this. Go ahead, Alfie.
No, sorry, you go on.
No.
I agree.
I think that's kind of one of the problems that we have right now is this overly competitive, win at all costs idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, yeah, I totally agree, and I mean, it's interesting to see the comments as well. Like, I agree with this comment about the immersion as well. Like, I don't think you're right necessarily that things are more immersive now. Like, video games have always been extremely immersive, and and so on. But anyway, I wanted to sort of respond a little bit to what you were saying, because I think it is an important point. Like, so, and this kind of connects to like desire and gamification and so on. Like, one of the interesting things I looked at was Grindr, right? Grindr is like it was the only one really for a long time that wasn't part of the Match Group. There's a company, they're a New York company called IAC. They own Hinge, Bumble, Tinder, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, so on and so on. Grindr was an independent one. In about 2015, it was actually bought by a Chinese gaming company that have only ever made video games until that point. Now, that was a pretty strange thing to happen because, I mean, the story of Grindr is hilarious because then obviously Trump decided he wanted it back. I don't know if you know about all this, but basically, so China has a very bad record of like LGBTQ plus rights and so on, and and Trump, obviously we know what we think, what his kind of positions are on this kind of thing, and you had this kind of fight between Jinping and Trump, like two kind of quite homophobic presidents, whatever, battling over this app, Grindr, and in the end Trump forced the sale back to a US company, which is bizarre, but what's happened with Grindr is it's gamification, and this is why it all connects to what we're saying, why we have ended up talking about video games when we started talking about relationships, right? Because Grindr was the pioneer from 2009 onwards of gamifying relationships. So people would actually go on dates and get points and stay on the app the whole time. They'd be like almost augmented reality. They'd be having sex or going on a date and staying on the phone, and the phone is gamifying the process of relationships and so on. So it's no surprise that a Chinese gaming company bought it, because it's part of, as you were saying, the reprogramming of desire, the gamification of desire. And yeah, school shootings and all this stuff, it does belong as part of this conversation, because this is about how video games have percolated out into not just the games industry, but basically everything, and have a sort of influence on how we think and feel and desire and love and so on. So I think all this stuff sounds like a wild collection of things, right? But they are actually connected through this gamification thing.
It's actually a really interesting conversation, because I think one thing we have to add is everyone on this screen has played, and some still play video games. Alfie does really come from the video game world. And just because we're saying this is part of the culture does not necessarily mean that I think all video games are evil. I definitely know they aren't for me. The last video game I played was in 2005, and it was Madden, because I could lose myself in creating a franchise and players. And if I had a bad day, I could go, and Marcus, you know this, you could go into your fake world, and I looked up one day, and I remember my wife at the time was like, "Are you gonna come to bed?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute." And then she came again. She was like, "Are you gonna come to bed?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute." And the sun had rose.
Oh
And now I'm
damn.
divorced.
Yeah. That's it. And which is like fell off, and like MMA is a part of it, but Fight Night, the boxing game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a game that it went from desire to instinct. Like that, like it went from video games to like we are throwing hands, because like you're cheesing on this one move way too much. So like now we got to fight for real. Yeah, that was the game that really put me and my friends in like a completely other world.
Somebody jokingly said Pascal plays Pac-Man. I mean, we have to remember, and Alfie is 100% correct. video games have always been immersive. And when video games first dropped, remember, I can't remember the guy's name that created Pong, but he didn't even know it was a hit until they called him and said, "Hey, the machine's broke." And he's like, "What do you mean it's broke?" They're like, "No, it's filled with quarters." Like, people won't stop playing this game. They love it. And that's Pong.
Yeah,
which no, this
and
is my
I
first.
Guess, yeah, what I had mentioned, like the immersion, I guess, with like the amount of detail and the amount of like education into like how things operate in real life, because there's no board that goes up and down that bounces back, a ray of light, in the real world, and like also that doesn't kill dozens of people, but it's like you're getting to a point where. And that's the thing that's like really fucky is like, like I see all the like with not only like video games but in like movies as well, where the like certain like as like as a former like Marine, there's a lot of things that are like lining up onto like direct individual tactics and shit like that, and you kind of like and yeah, like see it where like now a lot of these mass shooters are coming fucking head to toe in gear that we'd be lucky to get in my unit, and so it's like,
I
don't know. That's where I guess like not because like you're right too of like I mean like my dad's one of them. That story you just told about like Madden, my dad like same story with Pac-Man. Like
yeah, it's interesting. I do find that interesting. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I agree with the point about the immersion as well. Like, I mean, so this was my very first video games console. It's a Game Gear. I got that on my 7th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
You're young, man.
I'm 33 now.
God.
I was just going to say about one of the comments, not trying to give a hard time, but feel video games are like movies or books. This is also, I think, a really important point. Like, I'm not saying that desire was just free and then suddenly games came along and started to organize it, right, and control it. Like in the 19th century, books, like think about relationships and books, right? Like 19th century novels and so on, they started to set the terms, right, of what a marriage was, what love was, what relationship was. They coded relationships so that people would expect certain things in relationships that they had read about in books. That sounds a silly thing to say, but of course it happened. And then Hollywood cinema, of course, that structures the culture of relationships going forwards and so on. And then you get dating apps and video games and digital culture. So I agree with the comment that, digital media and these mad things we're talking about, they are like movies and books, but movies and books also coded desire and changed relationships. And now we're in a new phase of that transformation, right?
No, exactly. I try to live out Pretty Woman every day of my life.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I phrase this? All right, I don't want to move away from the human dimension of this, because that's what capitalism wants. So we're not going to do that. I want to know where, like, I know you could only experience this as a male. I don't know if you tried to experience this as anything other than that. But where does vulnerability fit into this? And where does Jordan Peterson fit into this?
I mean, the question of, I think you're absolutely right. One of the things that struck me, and this is why, in fact, I should have said it at the time, but this is why I mentioned the example of this kind of castration thing where you put the headset on and you've got another guy's penis. Because there's something so male about these structures. They invite you to enjoy a very particular kind of desire that is only from one perspective, right? So, yes, of course, there are other communities. There are interesting communities of like sex toy developers and so on, which are the opposite of that. I mean, one fascinating example of this is the smart condom. I don't know if any of you guys, I'm sure you haven't tried a smart condom, but it's like a sort of...
is it a virtual condom or...
Yeah, so again, I feel like I need to do the hand gestures, but you get a sort of black ring, and then you put it on top of a normal condom or just onto your penis or whatever. And initially, this was marketed as it's actually a British thing.
It makes you British? Makes your dick British?
But
Pretentious
it's
ass.
interesting in relation to Saint's question, because initially they tried to market this almost as a feminist thing, right? They were saying that finally men are going to have so it's like a Fitbit for your sex life, right? So finally men are going to have to actually, get good at sex, and start answering to female desire. But what quickly happened was like loads of guys who, like the Strava community, like runners, men who go on runs and then like compare their runs on stupid apps or whatever. It just quickly became this kind of like bro culture style thing where you'd get these forums with like men saying, look, I did like 50 thrusts per second or whatever. and sort of,
Does it tell you if the woman's faking an orgasm? Because that's awesome.
so you
That would lead to more shooters.
Oh my
but
god!
Why I mentioned that example is because of the question. Yes, it is. All of this technology is largely designed from a very particular masculine perspective to reproduce a certain kind of male desire, I guess. I absolutely think that's the case. I don't know what to do about that, but I think it's an important point. Right?
The condom Fitbit. I've been on this kick, Alfie, about the hyper capitalization of everything, and the condom Fitbit is the next level. Because if I was younger and like when you're a younger man like yourself, you're 33, and you care about all that shit, like Marcus would probably have a Fitbit.
A dick bit? No, I'm
bit.
good.
Marcus would totally have it.
I
can see Marcus right now with a dick bit.
I don't know, which I'm sure it's gonna be how much does a dick bit run you? Like, what's like the version 1? Because I don't want to buy a new.
100. I think it was like 100 or something.
Oh, see, Marcus, that's nothing for you, man.
Yeah, you can find it. Yeah, find one used on Amazon for probably like 50, 60.
All your
doing
friends,
push-ups in no time.
Yeah.
all your friends have to get one too, then, so you can compare.
That's what you need.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, that's.
Can you imagine Marcus on the left flank stream? Today's stream is brought to you by DickBit. I tried one, and oh my god, I'm getting actual orgasms from my partner. Before, I wasn't quite sure, but with the DickBit,
I'm not one for usually I'm not one for data analytics, but when it comes to DickBit,
I don't like to compete with others. I like to compete with myself.
yeah, exactly.
Right. But this goes back to what you were saying about culture of competition and the gamification of everything. Like it's.
As I picture Marcus cheating by jacking off, like, I'll show these motherfuckers right here.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna get my initials on top of this motherfucker. Don't shoot at top.
High score, motherfuckers. Yeah, which we got. There's Alfie. We're gonna have a long conversation after the show about the things. Yes.
Yes.
Competitive sexuality amongst dudes. Because there's a lot there in the Marine Corps.
The main problem with video games is that they waste too much time and have addictive reward structures. Concerns about the content are distraction.
Yeah, agree. I agree. Strong agree. Really, I think that the culture of talking about video games, and this is the same as what I was saying about how a game gets celebrated because it's got a strong female lead or something. Clearly the issue is the way there's several issues. Obviously, there's the industry itself and the kind of global exploitation that it requires to exist. But as this super chat is saying, there's also the question of distraction and culture. And I mean, this is actually the first thing I ever wrote about when I first met Doug and joined Zero Books. Actually, it was before Doug was there. Actually, it was the old people. And I wrote about this question of capitalism because I was working as a chef, right? And I was like a chef before university. I was just a chef in a pub, and we would always have like cigarette breaks, and we would always slag off our boss us chefs. We were working really hard. We were underpaid. We would always complain about our bosses and so on our cigarette breaks and that. And then like I took 5 years out to study, and I went back for a little while to do chefing again. And this was like the time of Candy Crush and Temple Run and things like that. And I noticed straight away that everyone was using their break at work not to discuss things and slag off their boss, but just to plug in 5 minutes of Candy Crush or whatever. So it's like, you can see, these patterns of reward and so on, but they're also a culture of distraction that is deliberately. And actually, I looked into it at some point, and it is true that like games like that, those mobile games, they're usually played on lunch breaks or on the way home from work. So the very two times when you're most likely to be feeling frustrated and, slagging off your employer or whatever, is that energy, that potentially revolutionary energy is getting like redirected into apps and games and so on. So I agree with that point. I think it's important.
Alf, I want to ask you this. I want to ask this question to all you guys. And Alfie's a lot younger, so I'm definitely interested to hear him and Marcus's answer on this. I can watch a film. I do a thing where I have a clock in my house now that runs on a battery because I don't want to always use my phone and have it in my hand as this sort of I need a reference point. I need an alarm to wake me up. I need my phone. No, my phone sits in a whole different room. I hate watching a movie with someone and a scene may get mildly uncomfortable and they pick up a phone. Have you ever seen that before, Marcus?
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen that, but I've seen like,
and like even so that actually gets into the way movies are made. It gets into the way marketing works, because when you do marketing research, you have to do marketing research with people watching stuff with devices in their hands.
Wow.
See, and that's where it's like, like what I've noticed is that it's like it's just mostly just there, like the phone is just like kind of like always there, and Ron.
It's I did marketing research back in 2014 for this company, and people had to wear these glasses that tracked your eye movement, and you had to watch 30 minutes of Modern Family. I don't know if you have that show in the UK.
Yeah. I know it. Yeah, what was it? And it was reading your eye movement?
It reads your eye movement, and you also got given, at the time, iPods still existed, so you got given an iPod, and your iPod only had like two functions. And it was trying to see at what point you look down. So you're looking at, most people look all over the place. Sadly, most people, male and female, looked at Vita Guerra's boobs. But you start to realize that this research is done because you have to chart everything. And that's why shows change. That's why commercials are different. If you think about the way you see commercials on TV, you see less and less large brands and more kind of smaller things, but product placement is huge. Influencer culture is huge. People willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for people to talk about a product because they know that most people's attention is gone. They have the ability to get away from commercials, the traditional sense of commercials. I also got to be in a marketing Facebook conference once, and that was kind of the whole discussion was the 30-second ad is a dead scene. We need to change the way we do marketing, and it's more, placement into your programming.
Yeah.
And, I haven't watched too many modern shows that aren't just product placement. Watch Law and Order. If you watch a show like Law and Order, around 2013, 2014, they started doing heavy product placement to the point where when they took out their phones, they all had the same phone. And whenever they'd have to solve a crime, it would revolve around the technology they would need to use that you could go purchase. They were like, quickly get your iPhone and let's text them. Call your wife that is in Afghanistan on Skype.
Oh, Jesus.
So it is kind of like when Alfie talks about the fact that, and I worked in restaurants. I know what that's like. I did line cooking. So you go take your 5-minute break and you talk shit you say vile things for 10, 20 minutes, and you go back on that shitty ass line. And now when you go take a break in any job, everyone is heads down.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. Yeah, and I mean, you're right about the product placement and advertising. This is not separate. Like the fact that you have different dating sites for different types of people, different products appearing on different people's screens. It's all part of what Pascal said, the balkanization of stuff. Like there is no, mass production, in the Marxist sense, should be an opportunity for mass movements. But what's actually happened because of the organization of the internet is a separating off from each other into these kind of bubbles, right? Yeah.
Well, I have another question for you. I
That
wanted
Toussaint is coming out the woodworks with him, boy.
I really like the book. I really like the book and the hair. So hey, um,
The hair, that means more to me than the compliment for the hair is worth at least twice as much as a compliment for the book.
very important. So I do have a question, sort of regarding the ladies, but sort of regarding all of us. So we know that Roe versus Wade was stricken down in the U.S. We also know, and maybe everyone doesn't know, but a lot of women upload their menstrual cycle information into apps. They
Yes.
even recommend it when you go to the doctor. Like, this is how everyone's doing it now. And so there's concern that this information might be used by the government to track one's activities and
Yeah.
possibly, yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, this is the most valuable. Sorry, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh yeah, no, I just wanted to talk about what we're risking in giving capitalism and technology our desires and personal information.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you've just said. That's what's behind the Trump versus China grinder thing. It's what's called intimate data, and it's the most valuable kind of data. And it comes from, and this is why the US wanted grinder back. It's not because they loved their gay population. It's because they wanted the valuable intimate data, which allows them to predict what people will think and feel and to influence people. You know, companies like Palantir and Cambridge Analytica, obviously experts in this kind of thing. I know there were some comments in the chat about it, but these are real companies, and it functions also as part of Facebook's logic and so on, and just as part of targeted advertising and so on. So understanding how people desire, think, and feel is critical to the way in which capitalism will nudge you. I guess in social media terms, it's often called nudging, right? Which is when, you know, you're not just marketed something. There's a strategy of nudging you in a particular direction. So like, you know, we work out what you want, and then we nudge you in whichever way is most beneficial to us, right? So one of my sort of favorite kind of stories from my own research actually was when I went to Alibaba in Hangzhou in East China.
Oh, wow.
It's this place called Cloud Town, they call it, and it's basically their Silicon Valley, right? And these guys were showing me. It was quite a funny story because I was like doing a talk about WeChat and saying how evil WeChat was, and at the end of the talk, a couple of guys in suits came up to me saying like, "Oh, we're from Alibaba," and I thought, "Shit, these are lawyers. I'm going to get myself in trouble or something." And they were like, "Oh, you hate WeChat, right? You hate Tencent. You probably love Alibaba." And I was like, "What? You're both evil. What are you talking about?" Anyway, they took me to Cloud Town, this place, and they showed me like all this stuff they're doing. They got this mad technology like traffic lights that count the wrinkles in your face and decide how long it's going to take you to cross the road based on your wrinkles and things like that. But you know, I said to the guy, what's the most impressive thing you got here? And he showed me this car. It's a joint project from Alibaba and Rover, which is a German car manufacturer. And I said, what's the most impressive thing about this car? And he said, I was expecting him to say, it's fast, it's the car that can't crash or whatever, or it's, you know, and he said, the car knows when you're hungry and what you might like to eat before you do, and then it drives you to a place that you're going to get your lunch from, right? And initially I was like, well, who cares like about that? But actually it is really powerful. Basically what it does is, you might fancy noodles on, you know, Wednesday at 7, but you haven't yourself realized that you have this pattern of behavior, but the car realizes, and then at 6:30 it says, listen, why don't you try these noodles? And why they do it? Because they don't want people to use cash. They want people to use Alipay. So they're redirecting people's behavior to places that are beneficial to them. So that might sound like a long way away from your question to say about the menstrual apps, but it's not actually. It's about the intimate data, the behavioral patterns that we all live in, and we're handing them over to corporations who have particular ideas and strategies to nudge us to behave in certain ways that suits them. So I
And
think
this is
that
the
is,
most valuable data that's on the internet now, is this intimate data. This is the gold mine of what
yeah.
really is being traded now by corporations on the internet. Are these little intimate little taste particles about what you like, what you want, what you take, what you're interested in, and it's being used and weaponized pretty much to generate profit.
Well, Shoshana
Yeah.
Zuboff's book talks about surveillance capitalism.
Yeah.
I'm sure Alfie had to do some research with that. I was on the show with her.
Oh, really? I was annoyed that she didn't, because the Pokemon Go stuff, she talks about Pokemon Go, and I feel like that was my thing. Like, I was annoyed I wasn't referenced in it, because I was writing about Pokemon Go a lot, and I really
For
felt like
the
I was
same
the
the
only
same
person
reason it was
saying it.
directing people
Yeah.
towards commerce for the same, or you were writing about it because you were like you wanted that fucking Pokemon.
Pokemon go to
Well, partly,
go to
yeah,
the
no,
ball.
because they were using it to direct people around the city. So in Hong Kong, where I was in that summer of 2016 when Pokemon Go exploded, they had like deals with McDonald's, and they had like the rarest Pokemon in the expensive shopping malls or whatever. So it was really Google's project. They bought Niantic and they tried to sort of see how can we redistribute people around the city in a way that benefits us using this game.
Using the
Wow.
Pokemans.
Yeah, that whole
Crazy.
when she talks about that Pokemon shit, it actually is kind of maddening. But she also talks about, and I don't know if you know this, I don't know, I think we've mentioned this before on the show, that there was, you know how you go to the grocery store and when you get a receipt, there's coupons on the back
Yeah.
for things that you might want to buy next time. Marcus Pascal, I'm sure you guys know.
Yeah.
So a woman went to the grocery store and she got coupons for scentless shampoo. No, I'm sorry. She got. I fucked it up. I did a Michael Scott and told the punchline. She got coupons for baby formula, and she didn't have a baby. And when she got home, she a few weeks later she took a pregnancy test and found out she was pregnant. The
Yep.
AI had realized that she was buying more scentless shampoo and scentless lotion, therefore she must be pregnant, because so it
Basically,
figured
yeah,
out she was pregnant
yeah.
before she
You
was.
feed into the same
Yeah.
things that the algorithm picks up about certain buying habits of people in, certain phases of their life. And like, yeah, so it's like enough pregnant people start buying certain shit, and once someone starts buying those things before they know they're pregnant, the algorithm
Yeah.
knows. And it's very
Yeah.
much very similar of like,
Yeah.
and yeah, of like where anyone can like you're gonna get hungry, right? Humans.
Yeah.
But like when it comes with pregnancy, it's like not everybody's just
But a
expecting
lot
it.
of the fear, and I don't know how Alfie feels about this, and this kind of goes into what we were talking about a little bit with
Yes.
video games,
Yeah.
is that when you can prey on someone's impulses to that level and you know where they are, you also start to understand how depression works. So if someone is now depressed, they're more impulsive.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so people start making kind of scary, impulsive decisions, i.e., trips to Vegas to go gamble. I know there were people that tried to tie in these impulsive things to. Do you remember the Vegas shooter?
Yeah.
The guy that
Yeah.
shot up the music festival.
Yeah.
Like there were people
Yeah.
trying to tie that all together. So I don't know what work Alfie did in that arena as well.
And
No, I
if
disagree.
can tie into the like also the kind of the tracking apps, the period tracking apps. Since like, because the thing is too is like some of this stuff is already out there, right? There are people's information that is tracked, that data, that's already out there. I don't know how possible this is, and like Pascal, like you're more of like a legal expert. But as far as like implementing laws that can go back, right, and prosecute, abortions that have already been, done and long past, or even prosecuting miscarriages as abortions, in which case some of the data, some of the stuff that's been tapped into the algorithm has already shown that people have gone through these processes. And I think in what M. Toussaint was alluding to was people either not using apps. It's people not using these types of apps and possibly surrendering them, the information for people to the state to repress them. But also, is it kind of essentially with that whole grocery store thing, like there may be people tracking, data that's already out there that's not tied to the specific things, but which allows them to pretty much know what's happening.
Can
I don't doubt it at all.
Go for it, Toussaint.
Men have started jamming the period apps, and they're just putting in crazy cycles to just kind of mess with the system, and maybe
really?
things off. Yeah.
This will be some sort of Reddit or 4chan community, probably.
They're comrades.
Yeah.
I think the steering you towards impulsive purchases when you're depressed, all of that sort of thing, is very interesting, because it would steer you away from, well, I would assume, like buying avocados and stuff. Like, you're too depressed to deal with this right now. All your fruits and vegetables are going to be spoiled. Don't buy those. Buy, I don't know, Chick-fil-A. Sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
You're really triggered by the fact that Chick-fil-A is moving into your neighborhood, aren't you?
It's not fun. It's a big chunk of gentrification that's coming.
Yeah, alarm bells need to go off.
And you know what? It's not very delicious.
It's really
You're probably
okay.
like the only black person who doesn't like Chick-fil-A, Jason.
It's okay.
No, I've met
It's
others.
okay. Yeah.
I've never tasted it.
You're
It's
not
okay.
missing anything.
It's okay. Yeah.
If there's a Popeyes in your vicinity, why would you go to Chick-fil-A?
True.
Oh,
It's just silly.
We got Popeyes here. It's good.
It's silly.
Yeah, but I bet that's real chicken.
Where
I want-
Chick-fil-A-
Because it's England, it's real chicken. In America, it can't be
There's-
real chicken.
Like, there's literally rules in other countries that don't allow fucking restaurants to provide the same food they
the
do in
UK don't
America.
allow. That was part of Brexit.
Well,
'cause the
my
UK
feeling
didn't
is it's just too small. Ours are just like mini meals. When I went to,
Yeah, you don't get the big steroid chickens. That's what I'm talking about. We got more steroid than chicken in our chicken.
it's true.
I also don't think Bojangles is better than Popeyes. Take that, Strom.
Oh, shameful.
Strom, I'm with you.
Go in there. Chicken battle. What's up?
Strom, I'm with you
Who
on
wants
this.
some?
incredibly.
Guess
But
what?
you can't get a blueberry biscuit at
overrated?
Popeyes.
Whataburger. Take that, Texas.
Well, I've been telling dudes in the neighborhood to start shooting some more. Maybe scare away some of this gentrification.
Oh, my.
Just
There's
shoot in
a-
the air.
Yeah, you,
Do
Shoot
every
air
couple of months.
like fly by night at the club. Just
Real.
shoot it in the air for no reason.
For no reason. Just do it. Scare them off.
that's
Just
true.
Stab a
You gotta do
9-year-old.
Every couple of months. You gotta do
No,
it.
just pop one off every couple. Like it's how like you want to keep your property taxes down. Just
Yeah.
pop one off, just real
That's
quick.
good. Marcus gets it.
There you
Left
go.
wing bets.
There you go. Chick-fil-A doesn't want to come there anymore. I mean, I think Chick-fil-A is gross. First time I had Chick-fil-A was in Rhode Island, and I was like, this sucks.
I'm on the Chick-fil-A. I don't know what this is, but I'm on its website now, just browsing their chicken.
You can invest with the AI now. Now you're only gonna get Chick-fil-A ads.
There's a chicken breakfast. I mean, who has chicken for breakfast? This is obscene.
America.
People
It's
that
only-
hate America, okay?
What are you talking about?
I'm with the patriotic socialists on this one. If you have chicken for breakfast, you hate America.
People have
I now need to submit my
You guys
resignation
never
for this revolution.
You ever heard of
Can't
chicken
be-
and waffle?
I'm
Yeah,
with,
chicken
I'm
and
with
waffles?
you, fucking Malpin. You didn't know that the
Great.
patriotic socialists don't believe in chicken for breakfast?
Chicken and
Disgusting.
waffles.
Yeah.
They don't believe in
Next
chicken
time I-
waffles? It's part of
next time
their
I come to
edict. The
Tastes like
patriotic
freedom.
socialist edict.
I'm going straight to this. Next time I come to the US, I'm going straight from the airport to Chick-fil-A.
Well, your car is Chick-fil-A.
So, Jason,
Yes.
you're saying no chicken at breakfast?
Who the
You eat
fuck?
eggs?
That's
You eat
totally
eggs?
not my first time in the Gulf of Mexico,
Do you
right?
you eat eggs for breakfast?
Oh, come on.
No. Oh,
that's not
come
true.
on.
By your
Oh, come
logic.
on.
By
Look,
your
it's not a
logic.
life yet. It's not a life. I have to feel the soul leave it before I can. Look, I told you my first day in the Gulf of Mexico, when I was cooking, I cooked in the Gulf of Mexico on oil rigs, Alfie. And my first day, because I'm from California, there was no one from California. And the steward, who's like the head guy, and I had to cook breakfast. And he looks at me, he goes, "You the boy from California?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "We don't eat that chicken and waffle shit down here." And I was like, there wasn't even a waffle maker there, but that was like the first time. And he goes, "Who the fuck mama used to make them chicken and waffles?"
It's like, but that seems like
I have
people-
questions about the chicken and waffles. I'm like,
It's made up shit. It's like chili and donuts. Nobody eats that shit.
Chili and donuts.
you put the syrup on the chicken or just the waffles?
Is that
Yes.
a sophisticated palate thing? Like kids don't like it? Like kids are not with that, and you need to be like a teenager when you start having chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles is some made up shit. And motherfuckers lost their mind for it, and then they started making it fancy out of Atlanta.
Oh,
Right.
Well, no, because the thing is, but like, if you ever had like a little chicken biscuit sandwich?
Who eats chicken biscuit sandwich? Get your chicken out of my biscuit. If you don't put some pig in there to piss Pascal off, get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah, this is.
God damn
What is a
it.
what is a biscuit, please?
Okay, so it's
Oh yeah.
'Cause I'm looking at one and I don't reckon.
Alfie, a biscuit is like a, so you say biscuit, you mean like cookie almost. Biscuit is
Yeah.
like a bread.
It's a bread, but it looks kind of like.
Well, Marcus,
fluffy or
I told you this story about when me and my lady
It's a
friend
roll.
ladies,
It's like a roll, mate.
and the person didn't know what a biscuit was. My date said, "Can I have a biscuit? Can I have the 2 biscuits, please? No gravy." And the woman was like, "Oh, you mean a pancake?" And she goes, "No, I mean a biscuit." And the girl goes, "A biscuit, a pancake?" And she's like, "No, a biscuit." And she points to the biscuit, like, "No, a biscuit." And this is like 3 a.m. because we just crossed the border. I'm taking her to the airport, and she goes, the waitress goes, "I have to be honest with you. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about."
Was she British?
No, maybe Target, but she wasn't British.
oh my
I don't, maybe she's high, but she really looked at us and said that, and so she eventually came back with biscuits, but I'm sure she was like, "Hey man, this bitch in front of her asking for something biscuits, this uppity bitch,
Quote unquote biscuits.
fucking making shit up. We don't serve biscuits here, do we?"
Amazing. But no, yeah, a chicken biscuit sandwich, that's a breakfast food. That's a breakfast food.
Mhm.
It is.
Okay, look, we need.
Well, my
people in the
self-driving car can take me there anytime.
Not on
Don't
Sundays,
go-
though.
Alfie, we will take you to a real chicken place when you come
Okay.
to California.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, actually, Pascal has one of the best chicken places. Was it a chicken place in Miami you showed me, Pascal?
Suck it and dive.
The Shuckin' and Jivin' Negro Shack.
Oh my.
Literally called sucking and driving.
Oh
There's a
my
place called
God.
Shuckin' and Jivin' in Pascal.
And you went there?
I've not been there. It's in Miami though.
Okay.
Pascal showed me the commercial.
I
Oh
was
my
triggered by the
God.
commercial. I was like, "You gotta be joking me."
Oh.
Negro Shack.
The Negro Shack. Can you imagine Alfie in a Negro Shack? Just all wide-eyed and shit.
My car took me here.
I would be
Do you
like,
have any biscuits here, chap?
This
Sounds
biscuit's
amazing,
massive. You put honey on it. Oh my goodness. I think I'm erect.
It's now interesting new desires. Biscuits.
It's the car. It's
He
the
goes
car.
home, starts throwing fucking crumpets. So get this out of the house.
Alfie, I bet you didn't expect your Saturday afternoon to go this way at all, mate. Eh?
No, I'm happy with this. I'm more than happy.
Alfie, thank you for taking some time to hang out with us
Yeah.
today. I know you're busy, got to do dad stuff, so
Yeah, I
probably
better
play
go back
video
to my
games.
child. Yeah.
And
I know I'm going to go back to my child. But it's actually been awesome to talk to you guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right.
Hopefully speak to you again soon and see you soon in person. Hopefully you as well, Pascal. Sorry to miss you in person, but hopefully next time.
For sure.
Peace,
Cool.
Alfie.
All right, guys.
I
See you
appreciate
soon.
you.
Thanks.
Peace, Alfie.
Later, Alfie.
Peace.
That was Alfie Bown,
You know,
author of Johnny Five Still Alive.
it was Alfie's. Do you remember Alfie's shoes at the Sublation event?
What was he? Oh, he had
had
the kind of like height kicks.
Yeah, he had like these like
That's
Air Force Ones, like these like Crayola Air Force Ones.
Great.
Like they were pretty sick. They were pretty fucking sick. I was not expecting.
I gotta
Yeah.
check that out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask Alfie how he could help us turn Pascal into the left's Jordan Peterson. It's my new project.
Oh man.
Can Pascal talk like Jordan Peterson?
No, depends on what you're talking about.
That's something though that like I think would like some of the literally the quote unquote research that Alfie was doing. But no, it ties into this same group.
Marcus, you've never done research to just fucked inanimate objects.
He was very diligent.
Not yet. But there is, whatever this type of disconnect or whatever the fuck with the, like there's just like, there's just a lot. There's some young men out there that need
that whole world, man. That's just.
Well, that's like it's like kind of interesting. It's like it's like they're kind of like aware. It's like, no, I need somebody to teach me, how to be a man or whatever the fuck. But then the Jordan Peterson is the answer. Is very
Grim,
yeah, very.
You think so?
A little bit, yeah.
Really?
A little bit.
You don't agree with his teachings?
Marcus is discriminating against Canadians.
I know. I think you hate white people.
It's mostly because he's white, a little bit because he literally killed himself off of eating meat. You know what I'm saying? So, like, someone like that, you need to just step back, reevaluate, sit down for a bit.
He
Have you
eats
ever been to a
salt
Brazilian
now.
steakhouse, Marcus?
Oh, hell yes. Okay, but not like that, okay?
See?
Like, if your belly bursts off of some delicious fucking, steak and shit, that's one thing. He damn near made himself septic or some shit off of just like eating nothing but meat. Like, come on.
The farts at that man's house must have just been room clearers.
Fire!
Like he's shitting a 2x4 every time he's going to the bathroom. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
To have a diet like I would, how they have those like eating challenges and shit? They bet me. The people at Texas Roadhouse many moons ago, over 10 years ago, bet me that I couldn't eat this 48-ounce steak, and I ate it, and I regretted it because I definitely was put out.
I think the worst challenge that I've done was a milk challenge.
You drank
No. Oh my God. I can't even imagine.
The milk challenge is.
The vegans are going nuts.
You
just cut the dreadlocks off, Marcus.
It's just like Marcus committed genocide.
For real. Why don't you just bite a cow?
That shit fucking tore my ass up it was bad news.
Oh yeah, the meat challenge for me, and you can take that any way you want to take it. But the meat put me on my back.
It's a lively Saturday today, boy.
It is. We are waiting. We actually have.
We got another guest.
We have another guest. I actually sent you guys that in the conversation log.
Mhm.
We were supposed to have some union organizers from the Augusta Starbucks that are encountering some problems in their organizing.
Augusta,
Georgia.
Georgia.
Augusta, yeah, Georgia. Whose loud ass house is that? Tucson, is that your loud ass house again?
No, it's not.
I don't believe you.
Karen is out and the kids are out. So my next door neighbors cannot be heard right now.
Tucson's house is so loud that we thought her neighbors were in her kitchen.
They sound like it. I want them to pay rent. They sound like they're here. I
Like,
need to claim them on my taxes too. Like, can you claim somebody else's kids? Because they loud,
Yeah, which
taking up space.
IRS is a little backlogged. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna get away with some shit, like now is the time.
I'm gonna try.
You know, I'm not saying do what he. You know, hey, everyone, make sure you get tax professional, blah blah blah. But like IRS is into some deep shit right now. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna claim those little crisis actors.
I actually watched that. Was it Vice that did that thing where they followed the people that believed that all these incidents with shooters were fake? And as we're talking about shit taking up your time, one of the guys that did all this research about crisis actors and who's legitimate and who's not, in the end he stopped doing it. And you want to know why? He was like, I've lost too much time and I don't even hang out with my children anymore doing this, so I'm just never gonna. I'm done. I lost myself in this silly shit.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fuck. I actually don't feel that bad. You know, fuck around and find out. You know.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, hey, you're an asshole. You're literally going out and destroying people's lives, like around like the worst day of their life. You know,
Yes.
when someone was gunned, like someone in their family was gunned down, right? And you lose the relationship, right? Your family's still alive, but you lose the relationships you have with your family because that shit. Good. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Well, I want to know how you guys feel about this. I feel like, and I definitely felt this way after that whole debate thing that Ben was at in New York. There's people that feel the mask is off for them, right? Everything is corrupt. News is partisan. Politicians lie. Everything's fake. And there are these arbiters of truth. And I was having this conversation, I think it was off air, with the Left Reckoning guys. And I was watching, there's this internet guy that's about to get in a fight with an actual boxer, Jake Paul. Jake Paul, people were just reviewing the press conference he was having with this guy. A lot of different channels. I went down a rabbit hole of reviews for this because I actually like fighting. And one thing I noticed was the channels that had way more views than others were channels that had a more bipartisan take. Everything was, well, Jake Paul's really not an asshole because this, and maybe Rockman has a chance because this. No one really had a firm stance on anything. And if you look at channels that are larger, they really don't, if it's not a how to get rich quick kind of thing or a makeup tutorial channel, it's just a lot of people that won't pick a side. And whatever they say becomes the truth. And in Tim Pool's in his opening comment, where people were like cheering, I was like, again, if you listen, I think Ben played it, and I don't know if he talked about it. You can probably hear me and Kuba in the background. He goes, I wake up in the morning and I read a left-wing publication, and then I read a right-wing publication, and he named Jacobin as one, and he said that he reads the Washington Examiner. And he says he reads them both and then he deciphers what the real story is, because both of those people are lying, obviously, and he decides the truth. People are like, yeah, and people next to us were like, you're the truth teller. And I started laughing really loud because I thought that shit was funny, because first of all, rarely do those Jackman isn't a news source. It's more like opinions, right?
Right.
Analysis.
And thank you, analysis. So that's very different than the Washington Examiner, and they never will cover the same story. Washington Examiner's
No.
a far right news site. So that right there is a lie. And the fact that both of these sites are inherently lying to you, but he's the truth teller, and James O'Keefe was the same type of way. You know, his gotcha videos, they are gotcha moments on people, but as Ben was explaining, which I thought was fascinating, because people that were fans of this stuff were coming up to us afterwards like, hey man, I never thought of it that way. So it was, I found it fascinating that like these are people that are almost apolitical. I wouldn't necessarily, when I first went there, I was like, oh, these are all right wingers. I wouldn't necessarily call them right wingers, and I wouldn't necessarily call them anything other than more intellectual dark webbers. But they were
Politically homeless, a lot of them call themselves.
politically homeless. Oh, that's a great analogy, because they were people that were constantly looking for the truth. And as Tim Pool said his parting word, he said, "And I've heard the Trayvon Martin shooting, and I know the truth." Part of a music project.
Snake oil salesman.
Part of the part of the research, not research, part of a music project that I was asked to do was to put some, and luckily it never got finished, it was really hard to do, was to put music to all of the raw phone calls of Trayvon Martin. And it was like a bunch of shootings, not just by police but by vigilantes. And I heard the call. I heard both calls. There's a call from people seeing it happen, and there's a call from Zimmerman. I don't know what Tim Pool could have said that would have made him think that there was some sort of a different scenario that played out other than the only one that happened. And when he said that, I said, that's not true. And people started turning around. They're like, you got the footage? What's your email? Send it to me. I was like, why would I send that? First of all, bitch, I don't know you. Second of all, why would I send you that? But again, these people just want truth.
Source.
Yeah. And Alex Jones is another one of those guys, because he goes, look, I'm telling you, nothing did more for Alex Jones's legitimacy than Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, oh my God.
All those people, anyone that sat somewhere and said all this shit, yeah, crisis actors, blah, 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 blah. Jeffrey Epstein was like, we told you. We told
Like
you.
QAnon, like, and that's where like the QAnon, like, I mean, like, there's no real like one conspiracy, right, with QAnon, other than the fact of like the, you know, cabal of child trafficking, you know, and yeah, then like
Pizzagate.
well, yeah,
Robbie
like,
Martin.
yeah,
I
so
did
they have
great.
that Pizzagate where like people are like trying to, you know, this guy goes in and tries to, you know, like kill someone and like going into trying to find a basement that doesn't exist, you know. But yeah, when you got Epstein, I mean, like, this dude's like, I mean, fuck, like Bill Clinton, you know, there was a picture of him getting a massage from an underage girl, like that he, you know, later raped, you know, I think people could safely assume. And he's still invited to DNC events and stuff like that. If you just know the facts, that would buy in, you know, that would, you know, like in like that's where, yeah, if the other QAnon stuff, right, it just like starts flowing from there, and they'll always go back to this reference point that what is it, like, just like a crumb of truth, right, and all of this that they'll always go back to.
Shout out to Andrew for the super chat. Is accelerationism the path forward? No, I do not believe accelerationism is the path forward. Accelerationism is the theory that you support the alternative or right-wing position under the theory that if the right wing position comes in, it'll bring forth the revolution quickly, i.e., let's vote for Trump, because if Trump comes into power, that means that the revolution may come faster.
Yeah, I don't agree with that thought process. Toussaint, what do you say? Sorry, I'm trying to arrange the Starbucks.
Sure.
What do you say about that, Toussaint?
I was gonna say that's what she said. Hey, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, well, I think the thing too is it's like it's not our job to save capitalism, but it's also not beneficial to anyone to try and push things in a more reactionary sense, in the belief that it'll make people wake up.
Correct.
Well, wasn't that the whole thing with Trump? People were really fired up about that. Like, yeah, stuff's gonna happen.
Well, I guess who was fired up? Like
January.
which segment was fired up? Yeah, and what do they do? And that seems like there was a lot of people, and even to now, who are mobilizing, around abortion rights and things of that nature. But yeah, like what does this actually mean? What political reality comes from these actions? And I mean, this starts going into some of the work that you're doing, Jason, about like United States is like kayfabe.
The world, brother.
The world
is like kayfabe.
So yeah.
I mean, to give you kind of an idea, like to play into that whole thing again, there was Marcus. Are you old enough to remember the Legion of Doom, the tag team wrestlers that had the spiky?
Yeah.
Remember them? They had the spiky.
Mm-hmm.
One of them had a horrible drug problem.
One.
And when they signed on to the WWF, his drug problem was kind of getting under control, or he was trying to control it, because the other one wasn't a very good standalone wrestler. And so Vince McMahon decided, well, let's just play his drug addiction into the storyline. And also TV writers had got involved with storylines for wrestling. So there's a moment where they became a three-piece, and the one that had the drug problem climbs to the top of the scaffolding, on top of the whole signage on top of the arena, and he's like, I can't live anymore because of these drug problems. And then the other one goes, you know what, you're too much to deal with, and he pushes him off. And it's all fake, but he was really having these problems play out in real time, in real life, where he was, So the fact that I will take real stuff, and we can riff on real stuff and give it to you, it's fascinating to me, especially when we talk about like Joe Biden's dementia and shit like that.
I mean, I wonder how much of that has to do with having no faith in actors.
Yes.
Like, you can't act this. I want you to do this for real. I want you to be really in terror. I don't know.
No, it's I think, again, a lot of that stuff plays into the fact that people really want to believe that everything is staged and everything is acted out and nothing is real. There's always someone pulling strings.
Well, and I think that's something with like literally like my experience like working as a staffer, and then people talk about like the what is it? Just paid opposition, right? Like that's not really like that may how it looks, right? Like that's may like how it like you see it. That's really not how like the machine operates, though. It's a lot more autonomous, which is worse, right? Like you can't, because like it's like even like going off of money in politics, this idea that it's like you cut off this one stream of money and then that will fix this system, but it's like that's not exactly how the whole thing works. There's a certain autonomous like motion to what's happening. That doesn't get into like DNC, staffers. This is the memo for, okay, well, we got to be weak on these points so that like that doesn't operate. It's like no, like these people legitimately believe that their political goals are correct.
You need honest, good faith believers for it to play out properly, for the spectacle to work.
Yeah.
I've also been rereading Society of the Spectacle. I've been texting
and that's one thing too is that I think is interesting was like the people who decide to engage, like and like go like the fucking guy that's like, in the Matrix that's like, no, put me back in, right? Plug me the fuck back in, which I don't know, like, and I feel like I don't know if you've ever like felt this, like that there's kind of like some type of every once in a while like a mentality within like left spaces where like people are like, man, this shit sucks. Like, plug me back in. You know what I'm saying? Plug me the fuck back in.
I don't want to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah, exactly. Can I just go back to being bright-eyed and bushy-tails? You know what I'm saying? Like, America is a great form of democracy, and you work hard, and we're gonna be okay, right? But no, like that's that. Yeah, once you see
simplistic answers, right, are what people are always going for.
Yeah.
So if you think about a documentary like 13th, that is the documentary version of a book called New Jim Crow. If you read New Jim Crow, one of the things that Michelle Alexander is grappling with, even in the introduction of the book, is that she knows she's missing some points. She knows she's missing the Latin question on incarceration. And she knows she may not be getting it 100% right. Like, because this is a theory that she's still working on. And if you hear her talk, a lot of times she goes back on things that she said in the book. But that documentary that comes out right after the book basically says it's all the 13th Amendment's fault. Slavery never ended. And mass incarceration is an extension of slavery. And people loved that movie because it gave you a simplified answer to a problem that we don't talk about outside of the partisan talking points of Moynihan talking points of it's fatherless colored people in poor areas. We need more prisons. And those are kind of the only talking points you really get. And Michelle Alexander's book for a lot of people was an aha moment. Where
it's perfect race reductionism and allows you to look at things within a certain skewed place where you don't have to look at the material consequences of anything, and it reduces everything to just about, well, they're coming for the black people. That's what this is about. And it sadly really leaves a lot lacking in terms of explaining how material conditions of political economy help frame the realities that cause those phenomena to happen.
I mean, it's an easy rabbit hole to go down, black codes, convict leasing, and there was really no data in there. It was just like, oh, okay, well, this is how mass incarceration gets expanded. You don't really get to find out who gets traded in that whole convict leasing.
And that's weird. Like, I think that I mean, basically, it's an academic structured, point or whatever, right? It's like, can I take these, points throughout history, fill in my own explainers, right? And modern day racism. There you go, motherfuckers. And it like focuses on the 13th Amendment, which is like, like you said, it makes it easy, right? Because then people could say, well, if we could just get rid of this thing, right? But also like have no understanding of the process, in which case like the Constitution is amended. Like there's no like Americans like have no like just no understanding of how this government functions. The fact that it doesn't really even functions as it's stated in some ways, but it does in other ways, which reveals that this is more of like a political will, not necessarily any type of quote unquote law and order, rules based, any of that type of shit. But no, people don't get that. And that's why, like, oh, hey, we'll just protest in the streets and then something will happen. and like that's just not how it works.
James Foreman, Locking Up Our Own, I think is a great follow up.
Good book.
If you've read the new Jim Crow, I think Locking Up Our Own is a great book. Well, we are joined by three of the people that are organizing a union at the Starbucks or one of the Starbucks. I'm sure there's not Augusta is not a small town. In Augusta, Georgia. I have not met these people. One of our listeners said, "Hey, Jason, there's some people organizing a Starbucks union, and since you guys were arguing about this shit on the show the other night, why don't you fucking give them a platform, jerk?" And I was like, "Sure." So let's hear what's happening, because I guess they are actually having some issues with the store, and apparently there was some horrific treatment they were getting as well. So please welcome Jake, Aiden, and Trey. Hello, fellas.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, sir.
Can you guys hear
How
us?
y'all doing today? I can hear you.
We're good. You have a Braves jersey on, and I get triggered because all I think about is Dale Murphy hitting home runs in Candlestick Park. I hated Dale Murphy. I hate him to this day.
Okay.
Other than that, we're fine.
Way to start an interview.
Yeah.
Hey, he started it with the Dale. All I see is Dale Murphy.
I mean, at least it's not a Dale Murphy jersey. I mean, it could be worse. It's a Ronald Acuna
It
one,
doesn't
so.
matter. It's just you represent Murphy and all things Murphy. I don't even see Hank Aaron. Well, what's going on, guys, with your Starbucks? I was told really briefly that there was some horrible conditions you guys were in, and you had decided that you were going to unionize, and now the store is pushing back. So first and foremost, what led you to even want to unionize?
There was a lot. A lot of it. The main thing that pushed us to it was, Buffalo was the first one to unionize. That was like the start of everything. But me and Jason had been talking because we closed, so not much managerial oversight with that. So you're allowed to have more free conversations. And we were just talking about like how cool it would be to unionize, because we had our grievances with the store. I mean, by and large, the manager we had was pretty good. I mean, we liked him, but the Starbucks corporate, once you get to as big of a company as Starbucks does, they start to cut corners when it comes to employees. So we were starting to get irritated at that, and we wanted a recourse for it. And so we thought unionization would be a good way to do it. And I think the thing that like really pushed Jason, or pushed both of us really, to like fully commit to unionization was one night I asked Jason, how many Frappuccinos could you afford with an hour's worth of pay? And I think for him it was 2 grandes and a tall, which we make that for like one order in like 5 minutes, and we have to work an hour to afford it. So I think that was one of the big things that like actually pushed us to action. But yeah, it was just general grievances we had, and it only got worse once we started unionizing.
And you guys are paying above minimum wage in your city?
Yes.
Are they offering any benefits to full-time employees?
As far as I know, no. I'm solely part-time. I'm in college, so I don't have enough time to put 40 hours a week into Starbucks. But as far as I know, the benefits are really generally just you work 20 hours a week, you get your benefits. However, I don't know if you guys have read, but one of the things they started to do is cut everyone's hours to be below 20 hours a week, so we don't get our benefits.
Oof.
Yeah.
Did you have something you want to say, Trey?
I mean, Jake's pretty much saying it all. I just came in late March, early April, so that was after all the organizing had been done, and we were getting ready for the vote. And I've just honestly been picking up on all the things going on as time has passed. And yeah, it's escalated pretty high since I got there. Just like hours cutting, people being surprise fired, just a lot of random stuff, and it's just lack of communication in the store with like our interim managers, just the firing of our manager right before the vote. That was the big thing that started off me noticing what was going on. And it's honestly, it's just been a really crazy 3 months.
Mhm.
And just, I'm getting nothing that I came to Starbucks for. Like, I left in the job to come to Starbucks for the benefits. I was told that the pay was going up across the country
Mhm.
for all employees come June. I started, and it was like, oh, they pushed it back to July. Oh, they pushed it back to August. And it's like, are they ever going to do it? And that's around the time I found out about that. That's when someone approached me about uh, unionizing and asked me if I knew anything about it or if I wanted information. And I was like, well, generally, from what I can tell, it's probably a good thing, the information, and let me know what's going on. And like just from there and just me like keeping that in mind as I'm watching what's happening in the store, I'm just like, this is a shitty way to say we don't want you guys to unionize. And that's
Uh,
pretty much it. It's we're doing something they don't want us to do, and they're doing everything in their power to make us not do it. And it's just gotten really shady on their part.
so what is there? When I worked at back in my day, I worked at a Starbucks before Obama, so long time ago. Probably before the young man in the Braves jersey was a memo in the love letter back then. So one of the benefits was A, they worked around college schedules, and B, they gave benefits to full-time employees, and it definitely was that whole beef about getting your hours cut right before you got into the benefit level. But because they hired so many young people in school, there were some ridiculous shifts. And I know initially in the Starbucks unionization efforts that were happening, that was one of the complaints, that because of the scheduling, and I think they actually corrected this. People were working like 2 hours, I think, really
Yeah.
short shifts. Has that been corrected?
Wow.
Well,
I haven't
there were a
seen
few,
that. But go
there
ahead,
were a
Jake.
few weeks where I was scheduled for a whole 5 hours, like one shift for the whole week,
But
which
yeah, it would be like that. Like, okay, so I remember one time someone had 2 hours for the week because they were a student, and I don't know if it was some managerial like middle finger, or again because you have so many people that have some of multiple jobs like I had, um, but working around the fickleness of the college schedule, which was something they actually marketed to for employees, like, hey, we will work around your college schedule. Um, People dug it to a certain extent until you're working like 2 hours, 5 hours a week, like you said. Um, is that
Can I
one of
ask?
your demands as well?
well, with our old manager, he was really good about you put in a change of your availability because I don't know if they had availability back then. I'm sure they did, but you put in a request to change your availability on the app that they have, and they either accept or deny it. And our old manager was really good about accepting it because he knew it was just a part-time job for most of us, and we have 30 employees at our store, so it's not like you're going to be hard pressed to find someone to cover a shift or whatever. So our old manager was really good about that. But since we've unionized, I've noticed they do not want to accept my changes of availability.
Mhm.
Luckily, my old availability has been pretty good for the school work that I have had to do. But I tried to change it this summer because I was taking summer classes and it was Monday through Thursday. I was wanting a couple more days to, like a day or two, just not work, not school, just be able to work on stuff or, relax.
Enjoy your
And
life.
it got left alone until it expired. And then I put it in again when we got our new permanent manager, and she denied it, saying it was too narrow. And that's been a common thread among everyone trying to change their availability is they've been saying it's too narrow. So that flexibility of scheduling has diminished over time. Ever since we unionized, it's been basically non-existent.
Can I ask, I think that like obviously there's been a wave of, multiple Starbucks unionizing. What type of connection do you have, to the overall, national effort and, how are they kind of like assisting y'all?
Well,
You can go ahead, Trey.
Oh, I was just as far as I know, like we're fairly well kept in the loop, keeping them in the loop with what's going on with them through Jason. We had our rep from Atlanta, Camden, come down while we were on strike Monday. Just he found out about it Monday night, right after we decided, and rushed down Tuesday morning to like come and be with us at the strike and like give us advice, help us along, and to let us know how we fit into the national unionizing movement, and just how like we can begin to like fold ourselves into that so that we can work for Starbucks as a whole and not just Starbucks here in Augusta. So that's getting like we just put that into motion just this week.
Dope. And another like, how's the community? If you can, if like there's anything you could tell at all. Because I've seen, some Starbucks that locations where they've actually gone on strike, and you've got some people who are supportive, and there's they'll say, all right, I'm not going to this Starbucks. There's usually one right down the road anyway, and so they will in somewhat stand in solidarity, with those workers. How's how's the community kind of like taking your efforts?
I've noticed like two different crowds. So the people that, when we were on strike, Trey can attest to this, when we were on strike, there were a lot of people that came by and they would honk and give us thumbs up. There was one person that honked to give us a thumbs down, but they would generally when you're in person, they're really supportive. But then I noticed when I look at so the Augusta Chronicle and News Channel 6, which is our local news, a lot of people picked up the story of us striking. And I've noticed, especially on Facebook, which Facebook is Facebook, the kind of people on Facebook, but a lot of them were not in support of it. So it seems when you're actually in person and people who actually come to the store often are in support of it, but the people who are kind of like off to the side and don't actually go to Starbucks, like act like they go to Starbucks a lot and say they hate it, that we're striking. But generally it's been pretty supportive, which is surprising considering we're in Augusta.
Along that lines, I wanted to ask, how has it been for you guys dealing in the state? I assume that Georgia is a right-to-work state. Is it a right-to-work state?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
How exactly is it dealing with a state that has such a long historical record of being hostile to unionization? How is that affecting your efforts in that regard?
Honestly, for me, like I guess it doesn't affect it just because that's what I've known my whole life. Like I've known nothing else other than I live in Georgia and they could fire me because I crooked my finger wrong this morning, Like I've always known that about living and working in Georgia. So that really doesn't affect how I personally see or move to do things just because it's already a thing that's been on my mind since I was like 12. So, for me, it's just like you do what you do and you hope you make it through.
That's an interesting point because we talked about this on another show we had about this being, especially in places like Georgia, a bit of a paradigm shift to the way we look at labor. And one of the ways that people are getting involved, and you have a very, what's the term, heterogeneous group of people, right? You have a lot of young people, you can have older people working at Starbucks, college students to high school dropouts, everybody can work at Starbucks. But for those younger folks, and I'm seeing that this is some sort of talking point. Marcus and Mac were yelling at me about this the other day. For younger folks like yourself, Jake, that are a student, and in a right to work state, you're at the precipice of a true paradigm shift of how you and your generation in Georgia can look at labor. What then happens when you do become part of a larger machine and economic precarity isn't, your cause anymore to feel stepped on by capitalism?
I think for my generation, especially ones that are still working those service jobs, as of right now, like you said, that they're just they're feeling stepped on, because that's generally what, fast food places, they step on their workers and hope that they just either quit so they can hire someone else or whatever. But I think our entire view of capitalism is wholly different from 2 generations before us. So I think once we start getting into the actual labor force that isn't just like close to minimum wage jobs, I think you're seeing it like Silicon Valley with like millennials, I guess, would run Silicon Valley because they were kind of like that generation. You see a lot of those companies being run differently, and they're being more worker focused, even though they still have their problems.
That's kind of my point, and I was trying to make it, because I don't think people really understand that. Like, let's say you got into tech. It's worker focused in the sense of, I'm going to give you more accoutrements, more little things to your job. Work is going to be different, and you don't have a boss. You have a teammate, and that's not a desk. That's a beanbag chair, man. There's a room to go make noise in, and there's a gym in here, and there's Fruit Loops on every floor. And we joke about this, but there is a reality that when you work at Starbucks and everyone is suffering under the same economic precarity, there can become a brotherhood where everyone decides we need to fight. Trey is going to fight for Jake, who's going to fight for Aiden, who's going to fight for Jason. Jason is the organizer, guys, by the way. It's not me. He spells it differently. But what then happens for those of you that move on and then get kind of subsumed into the machine where someone says, we're worker focused. Look, here's some benefits to start. And guess what really shuts you up? Stock options. Do you like I say it like
You're
that.
literally describing Starbucks right now.
Yeah, that's literally Starbucks. They call
to a T.
They call their employees partners.
Right.
They give us free Spotify, and they give us 401k and stock options.
Like in the real world, right? That doesn't do anything for you, right?
Yes.
Free Spotify and stock options that are this big don't do anything. I did some contract work in tech, so I work with people that got fully vested and bought houses. There's a humongous difference between walking in the door at $150,000 a year and, again, the tie that binds, which is our shared economic precarity, the shared fact that we're all struggling to make rent, the shared fact that we hate our commute in and out of work and crappy bosses. Everything's different when you have a meeting room to sit in and work out these problems.
My God.
And so I just asked this question because I love seeing the country as a whole have a different view of labor, as it just is. If you work at Starbucks, you don't deserve anything. If you work at McDonald's, you don't deserve anything. And I love the fact that people are standing up and saying, no, I deserve to live. And we're going to use our labor power. But does that change as the situation gets better and the working becomes comfortable?
I obviously I'm still in school. I am actually in I'm computer science major, so I will be seeing that change when I graduate, hopefully. But I mean, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell because, again, I'm 19. I don't really have any view outside of, like, I did a work thing through school for like 4 months, and then COVID hit and I couldn't come back. And then a year later, I went to Starbucks because I needed some money. And so I haven't had a view outside of, small jobs that make me like a few bucks an hour. So and my parents, they don't work in the tech sector. My mom's an IT person, but she's an IT person for a school. And my dad works at a fertilizer plant. I think they make a lot of ammonia and stuff. So neither of them would be able to provide me any input on that. So really, I would hope that my view doesn't change. Obviously, you would like to be the, most ideal person possible in your mind. But honest, I wouldn't be able to tell until I get into that sector, until I get into the real world with the pensions and stock options and
Well, I hope, I believe that shared struggle, hopefully it transcends. But there's nothing like a company card that tamps down revolution.
But that's something though, and this is something though that, and what we talk about is like, and that's the thing is like, Jake, even having this conversation now, right? Of like, you got this fucking old black dude questioning your future, like, are you gonna sell out, Jake? Jake, you motherfucking sellout, Jake.
Oh no,
No,
I do that to him every day. So like,
oh yeah. No.
Good. Yes, it's like Trey. We've actually Trey's on our payroll. We just to watch you. Just keep eyes on you. But
where's my dinner, Jake?
Yeah. But that's something, because for us, and like it really too is like you like, as people who are doing media, right, and we're talking about stories and narratives and things that are going on, something that I see within the Starbucks movement is really the expanding out of the stores and going like really like up or down the supply chain, however you want to, whatever you want to call it. So you're getting roasteries, you're getting fucking packaging plants that are now also getting incorporated into it. And I mean, like, and Trey, you kind of spoken to like this, the incorporation into the national movement has kind of been happening this past week. And so that's where I'm seeing at least something that looks more than just, 5 to 10 people, in stores saying, hey, we're kind of getting a shitty deal, just like that other store over there, and just like that other store over there. It's pushing past, the experiences between baristas, between roasters, between packagers, between, transporters, and it's making that, the collective enemy kind of like, the Starbucks corporation. And I guess too is like also is where I'd hope is like when you start getting into the people who grow the beans, then there's a lot of power in that. So I guess I don't know. For me, I want to say that I'm less fearful than Jason so far, like, what
Why? Because you've never seen the inside of Wonka Land.
I gotta hope. Oh no, yeah, but I gotta hope, and I think that there are kind of experiences that myself and Jake, like as as a millennial, as Jake, Jake is I don't know, you'd be like a young millennial or old Zoomer, we do, are experiencing, a work that is not even, it's not, like basically that sellout, is becoming less valuable, and I think making connections along the way, it's going to make it harder to sell out, like hopefully Jake, when, you get your, tech education and you're able to do all types of crazy shit with either
Jake's
algorithms and stuff like that, use your powers for good,
Austin.
He's
a nice 2-bedroom apartment, and he's going to get given his company Mac, his MacBook, and it's going to be the country cousin goes to the big side, golly, and then
God damn. Y'all tell me your buildings are bigger than 3 stories?
What do you mean? He's gonna sound like Ice Cube and Anaconda. There's checks out there this big.
But also I want to I think dude, we kind of missed, or at least haven't really talked about Trey and your experience, and I don't know, I want to put like the whole black community
on
at
back.
Starbucks on Trey, but like you're it.
There you go, Trey.
I
Speak
mean,
for all black
let's see.
people in Augusta.
No, it's happened before. That's what happens down south. They corner one of you and just like, tell us what you guys think, and it's like, there's a million of us, bro.
And do you know Outkast?
Exactly. Oh my. There's also a funny I Met Andre story that like people are just like, wow, you met Outkast. It's like, no, I stood next to him for 5 minutes. Like, chill.
Get him on the show, Trey. Can you get him on the show?
That was 20 years ago, man. That's exactly how it goes. But yeah. What were you saying?
Yeah, well, but I guess kind of even like we talk, like there's a lot of talk, I think, in like broader sense of like things that affect the black community, and I think a lot of things get lost, that like there's no inherently one thing or another. You like end up with just black people working, trying to make ends meet, and especially too like in the political sense, where in Georgia, there's so much hefted on like the black community and voting, um so my question is like, do you see anything more like, at least like within your community, is there any type of black community around supporting labor? And I think like the Poor People's Campaign kind of like takes Martin Luther King's some of that tradition to try and I got some jams. But yeah, I just kind of question like, is there any solidarity? Is there any community aspect to that? Or is it just kind of this is just a lot of black people live here, we go to work, and that's it?
Honestly, for the most part, it's the second. It's a lot of black people live here. We go to work and we try to make ends meet. Like, and as far as like them being a part of the community of like supporting the labor forces and what we're doing as far as striking and doing what we can to like get what we need, it's a matter of how comfortable and secure they feel in whatever line of work they're doing. If they feel like doing that is going to be a danger to them and their job and their finances and taking care of their family, they're probably going to let us know they support us and that they're happy for us and proud of us, but that I'm sorry, I can't because I got a baby to feed. To which we're like, do what you do, baby. We here to do this for all of us. Like I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it for Jake. I'm doing it for Iden. I'm doing it for everybody in that store with me. I'm also doing it for all the people who come through drive-through who might be dealing with it at their jobs. I'm doing it for all the babies who will have jobs later, and I don't want them to go through this. Like I'm just doing it for everybody. If we get a few of them to fight for everybody, then the ones who don't feel safe to fight can.
Oh, Deep State cut him off.
Yeah.
Deep State cut Trey. Deep State cut you off.
His FBI agent. Saying too much.
There's a super chat question we have for you guys, and we're going to wrap it up soon. What are conversations like with coworkers? Are folks scared? Thoughts on the wave of store shutdowns recently across the country? And that is from Arlo Bender Simon. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, so as far as the conversation goes, they've been generally good. Like we are a pretty tight-knit family at Starbucks, and so a lot of people were pretty open to discussions, as long as we weren't doing it in front of a manager, just in case. But it's been pretty open conversations when it comes to, conversations about unionization, and they've been able to ask the questions they want to ask to me or Jason, and we've been trying to answer them as good as possible. And that's why I think the vote was 25-6 or something like that. And that was because we were able to have such open conversations. If we weren't able to have those conversations, it would not have been such a landslide victory. And as far as shutdowns, I think 33% of the stores that were shut down, of the like 15 or 16 that were shut down, were either about to, like they were in the process of unionizing, or they were already unionized. Whereas I think it's less than 5% of the Starbucks across the country are actually unionized. And I think that discrepancy alone, not even like taking into account, like where they are or who works there, you got a lot of people of color and like LGBT people that live there or work there. That's one thing that's definitely problematic about shutting down those stores. But it's obvious that they're just trying to send a message that if you unionize, you are at risk of shutting down. And I don't think they realize how stubborn we can be when it comes to fighting against their union busting. I think they can walk over us, and the fact that we have a union behind us means that they can't, and they don't realize that yet.
Pascal, do you have some parting words for our guests?
No, I want to say that I really appreciate that you guys are taking the efforts to try to put the issues of labor at the forefront in this political climate because we really need it. We haven't had it in many decades, and it's about time. And I wish you the best of success with your efforts in your unionization move in Augusta.
Appreciate it.
Toussaint, do you have any parting words for our guests?
Just want to say that I appreciate what you guys are doing. Just want you to know that the public knows they're giving flimsy excuses for closing down the different stores. Something about a greaser overflowing. Like, come on, man. We know, and we support you. Want you guys to know that. Please keep us posted on how this progresses, and we appreciate you.
And Jake, just remember, when you get that job, that apartment, and that new MacBook, and that check with all the zeros, don't forget the struggle, Jake.
Stay real, Jake.
Because those zeros are struggle-killing zeros. Just
Yeah.
remember. That's what they're designed to do. Then
It's worked for too long.
Then you're just an angry white dude yelling on Twitter. So you can go from being a unionizing guy to an angry white guy yelling on Twitter with just a couple more zeros on the check.
That's these like those people on Facebook, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those like don't end up becoming the people on Facebook saying like, well, I want my fucking latte, so what the hell, like we can.
I worked at Starbucks. I know how much.
Yeah, there's so much of that of like I
Unironically,
suffered unnecessarily, right? So like you must suffer as well. It's like no, that's not.
Unironically, I saw someone say, I've been working at Starbucks for 10 years. They give you insurance and all that. And I'm like, you didn't even read the article. We literally said they were cutting our hours so we wouldn't get the insurance. You're just talking out of your ass right now.
So just remember, you guys are doing a good thing. Don't let the zeros turn you into a Twitter warrior. I've seen it happen to good people. Jack Dorsey.
Yeah. And I don't know. There's something that Trace, like said, where like you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for like the larger movement. Doing it for the people who can't, get up and fight. Yeah, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? That's it right there. And that's how we're gonna like not just Starbucks, but Amazon, and like there's also a lot of traditional unions that have been a lot more aggressive. So yeah, not only that, you're not alone. There are people who are outside of the Starbucks movement that support it, and but also too like there's group workers all over are having the same understanding of like. Yeah, the bosses don't really give a shit, and it's only going to get fixed if we care for ourselves, So, thank you for what you're doing. Really appreciate it.
So, thank you guys very much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck. Continue the fight. We are with you guys. And I know you guys are busy. I think there's something going on today, right?
Oh, maybe.
Or Jason had something going on today. That's why he couldn't.
Yeah, it was Jason.
Okay.
I think he had.
Which actually too is like, how can people support you and Starbucks, or at least the Starbucks unionization movement?
Well, just voicing support online, getting more eyes on the different stores that are unionizing. Some stores, I know we had a GoFundMe for lost wages during the strike. I'm assuming other stores have done that too. So just like donating specifically to the stores, or donate. I don't know if Starbucks Workers United has a donation thing, but either way, I mean, just getting eyes on us, do whatever you can to get more publicity. Every little bit helps.
Did you have any last words, Trey? For the show.
Good save.
Yeah.
Someone sneaks up behind him.
Another one gone.
Yeah.
It was the person who muted his mic.
Yeah. Howard Schultz comes up.
Well, on that note, thank you guys very much, Pascal.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us today after you sat through that horrible movie.
No problem, brother.
Marcus, I wish you would have sat through that horrible movie.
Never.
And Toussaint, thank you for making me laugh through that horrible movie.
No problem.
You have any final words, Toussaint?
No, I'm glad Marcus asked how we can support you guys and what you're doing, and just thank you. It's inspiring.
And tell Aiden that we were sorry we're having some issues with his connection, so we're sorry he wasn't able to get on. But I think you guys did a wonderful job representing the store. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back Tuesday with Daniel Bessner and his what magazine was he on the cover of? Pascal, wasn't The Nation, was it?
Harper's.
Sorry, Harper's. See, Toussaint's been doing the reading.
Hmm. And shout out to Jason in the chat. It's spelled differently.
It's the different Jason. It's not me. He's Jason.
Different.
He had some super black parents to name him.
Yeah, and actually, we couldn't let Aiden because there's only
Either that
one
or
white
he's a
person.
rapper.
That's right.
I would assume
The quota.
Yeah, one white person allowed.
Gotta-
Okay, just one.
you fulfilled the diversity quota. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want him to know my son is colored. Put an eye on that motherfucker. All right. Thank you guys very much, and we are out.
Out.